Have a statement I want to read, just to kind of help set things in motion. And good evening. I want to thank all of you for attending. The purpose of this meeting is not only to consider the TIF requests for the developers in case we previously missed something, but also to address all the misinformation related to this project. Since day one, the board has been clear that it would not incentivize a project that directly competes with Singing River Health System. We welcome competition. As you can see, there are great healthcare options all over Jackson County that are not part of Singing River Health System, such as Bienville Orthopedics, Memorial Clinics, and USA Medical Clinics, along with many other private physicians. All of these have been successful without county incentives and, to our knowledge, without city incentives. Moreover, we understand that SRHS has facilities and competes in Harrison County. However, we did not ask Harrison County taxpayers to incentivize SRHS projects. We understand that Singing River Health System is not perfect, but neither is any other health system. The Jackson County Board of Supervisors has worked extremely hard over the past decade to make improvements to our health system, along with our Board of Trustees, and we believe that we have some of the greatest healthcare employees in the state providing amazing services to our citizens right here in Jackson County. Please remember that we consider all taxpayers in Jackson County when making our decisions as a board. The health system is owned by the citizens of Hurley, Latimer, Van Cleve, Ocean Springs, Pascagoula, Moss Point, and Goche. Everyone that resides in Jackson County owns the health system. It is our largest asset. We must do what is best for all citizens of Jackson County. Every TIF request ever approved by Jackson County has been placed on the agenda prior to Board of Supervisors approval. Generally, if the Board of Supervisors does not think it is in the best interest of the citizens of the county, then the request is not brought in for a formal vote. However, in this case, the developers thought it would be best to proceed with a formal vote. This is their opportunity, along with their professionals, to help us understand how this will overall benefit all the citizens of Jackson County. We look forward to their presentation, along with any input the public may give. However, please know that TIF loans are not an entitlement. In fact, as of the time of this meeting, there has never been a completed TIF in the history of Jackson County on county ad valorem developments. Developments occur throughout the county and the Gulf Coast without tax incentives. My mouth's getting dry. The Denny Avenue project bonds will be issued within the next couple of months, and that will be the first fully executed TIF in which the Jackson County Board of Supervisors has participated. We have numerous projects under construction that the county has committed to TIF agreements for, and we understand that it is a helpful tool for economic development purposes. However, we must access the risk to the taxpayers on each project and determine if the development will be overall beneficial to the entire county. After the developer's presentation, we will allow for board members to respond, followed by public comments. After the public comments, the Board of Supervisors will vote if the board deems necessary to do so. You gentlemen have put out a significant amount of information claiming that we as a board do not understand this TIF and how it will benefit Jackson County. As such, we are turning the floor over to you so that you can provide us with your reasoning in a professional, transparent fashion rather than on social media. And before anyone starts coming up, I want everyone to understand that we're not going to put time limits on anyone, but please be mindful of everybody's time. let's not get redundant with things, saying the same thing over and over again. We want to give everybody the opportunity to say what they have on their mind. And with that, we'll go ahead and call up, what's the developer's name, Josh? It's Lawrence. Mr. Lawrence Layden, is that correct?
Mr. President.
Go ahead, Mr. Taylor.
Let's find out who is here.
Go ahead.
I recognize Singing River Health System is here. We have heard Dr. Edlaka and Tassan will not be here. Are they here or not? Okay, but their consultant will represent them. Okay. Is the city of Goshen is here? I heard Councilman College and Anderson would be here. Okay, yeah, they're both here. If y'all want to have a comment sometime during, please let us know. Is there any other organization here? A lot of public people, great to see you, but is there any other organization that we would need to know who is here? Okay, great, thank you, sir.
Go ahead. Come on up, sir, please, sir.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Lawrence Lyons. I'm with Urban Development Toolbox. I am a consultant that specializes in tax increment financing. I have been before this board. I have 6 projects currently underway with you, one of which I guess will be your second one. I'm happy to announce the Nissan dealership in Moss Point just got completed, and about 12 months from now is when they'll be coming forward with their receipts and asking for reimbursement on that public infrastructure.
Great.
They need to have 12 months of retail sales, but I wanted to let you know that was done, and Mr. Cannon will be working on the Ford dealership next, so it's coming forward. So I thought tonight, since there's a lot of dialogue and I'm not really in the mix, I wanted to let the community know, and the board already knows this, but my role and responsibility, and it's in my contract, is that I represent the interests of the city and the county. I'm compensated by the developer. I get calls every day from developers looking for incentives or inducements or free money or tax breaks or grants, and that's not really the role that I play. With tax increment financing, and I'm going to try to explain to the audience how it works, the mechanics of it, the whole process, so everybody understands TIF, because that's my role here. I'm not here on behalf of the developer. I don't have the development information specific to the project. That they would be here at a public hearing for the TIF plan. That would be the right place for them to be here. So I wanted to keep my remarks. Let's talk about TIF and what the request is for the developer, because that's the role that I typically play, to bring that in, bring it forward. So to start out with, tax increment financing was sort of invented back in 1968. It started in California. Every state, just about every state in the country, has their own version of a tax increment finance statute. They're different from state to state. So if you research tax increment financing, you really need to look at Mississippi if you want to talk about Mississippi. And Mississippi has a very straightforward, normal sort of what I would consider a win-win scenario where it doesn't adversely affect the public. It was adopted in 1986. There are hundreds and hundreds of tax increment finance plans that have been put in place that have created projects all over the state. I travel all over the state doing these projects, along with a couple other gentlemen that do it as well. It's sort of a specialized business. The way a tax increment finance plan works is that you take when a developer has a piece of property and they're doing a substantial project, and usually that's more than, minimum $5 million, but typically it's over $10 million. And there's no public infrastructure. In this particular case, the project is currently estimated at $52.2 million. It's on an empty piece of land, and on that empty piece of land, currently the ad valorem taxes that the city, the county, the school district are generating are $58.85 a year on that property. And it seems extremely low, don't understand why, but that's what the taxes are as they sit today. And the developer's putting these projects together, and they're trying to do this multi-use project in this particular case. But the things that are not at place are the sewer, the water, the streets, the sidewalk, traffic signalization, landscape, fire protection, lighting. These are the kinds of things that are public infrastructure that are tax increment finance eligible expenses. In other words, it's things that government would use general fund monies for to build or spend money on. So they come to the city and the county and they say, look, I want to build this $52 million project. It's going to generate hundreds of construction jobs temporarily. It'll create permanent jobs. It's going to create all these new buildings that'll be permanent ad valorem taxes coming into the county and the city and the school district. It'll generate sales tax if retail applies. It'll generate sales tax for the state and rebates back to the city. But the project's not financially feasible because of this extra cost of all this lack of infrastructure. And so in effect, big picture here of what a TIF plan is the city and the county are pledging through the adoption of a tax increment financing plan, a pledge of a portion of the increase in taxes that are generated as a result of the project from the meets and bounds legal description of the project area. They're pledging those taxes that the developer is going to pay towards a future debt instrument to reimburse the developer to build that public infrastructure to the city, in this case, specifications. And those public infrastructures are going to be turned back over to the public as a conveyance as a result of that. So it's not using anybody else's money. It's if right now you're getting $58, if this $52 million project is built, my estimate right now is that the ad valorem taxes for the city, the county, and the school district will be $1,137,000. So with the TIF plan adoption, the city has now pledged the increase up to 100% of the increase in ad valorem taxes. They adopted this in April of 2024, which I'm estimating is about $299,000. And they've pledged a reducing amount of the rebated sales tax, which at 100% is about $319,000 per year. The county's projected increase in ad valorem tax as a result of the project is $371,000. And the school district's increased tax would be $465,000. Now, under the TIF statute, you cannot pledge school taxes, period. So any taxes that are generated as a result of the project go straight to the school district after the first year. You can't pledge existing taxes. So the $58.85 that you're currently receiving, you'll continue to receive. The most important thing I'm going to say tonight that the public needs to hear, that everybody needs to understand, is with a TIF bond, unlike a general obligation bond, the county and the city are not pledging the good faith and credit of the city and the county. And I want to explain what that means for the public's benefit. What a bond is a debt instrument or a loan. Federal government issues bonds, state government issues bonds, counties issue bonds, cities issue bonds, school district issue bonds, water districts issue bonds. When the county issues a general obligation bond to build a bridge or a road or whatever they're doing, they are borrowing money and they're saying that the tax base, our millage, the money we're receiving from the Jackson County residents, is being pledged to repay that debt instrument back. On a TIF bond, it's not possible to pledge the public's money. You cannot spend one penny of the public's money in the repayment of the TIF bond. So whoever buys that bond after the project's built and they go out to the market to see if somebody will buy it, number one, if nobody buys the bond, then the developer can't get reimbursed. But if somebody does buy the bond, whoever's buying that bond is betting, if you will, the risk is that the developer will pay their ad valorem tax and that there will be sales tax, if that's applicable, that's rebated from the state back to the city in order to make the payment on the bond or the note for the principal and the interest. If they neglect to pay that ad valorem tax and the bond owner comes in and says, well, here's your payment due, and there's no money that's been received, then the city and the county cannot make a payment. You cannot use your own funds to make a payment on a TIF bond. So it's not the public's money, it's the money that the developer's paying as a result of the project that actually pays the bond back. You're effectively reimbursing the developer for the public infrastructure that they're building that's being conveyed back over to the city in this case, meeting the city and county specifications. So that's kind of the big picture of what a TIF plan looks like. Because of the opening statement and the developer understands that, what we're asking for in this specific project to make this project feasible, because of the extensive cost, it's almost 20% of the total project cost. We're looking at about $9.5 million of infrastructure costs. When we were here back in April having informal conversations, we were at about 4.5 million, but the cost of that infrastructure's gone up. So you're looking at almost 20% of the total project development. And it's just making the project much less feasible in terms of making it make sense, especially in the way the economy's going right now with the pressures of inflation, and now they're talking about tariffs and building materials will go back up, et cetera. And so what they're proposing for the county is that the three main medical buildings that are going to be built, which are estimated at 27 million of the 52 million, will be excluded from the TIF plan, meaning 100% of the taxes that the developer pays on those three medical buildings will not be included in the TIF plan, will not be able to be used to pay back the TIF debt instrument. But they're asking for the other roughly 25 million if the whole project's built, $52.2 million is spent, that the county will pledge up to 75% of that increase in ad valorem tax related to the retail portion of the project. That would be hotels, restaurants, retail stores, commercial businesses. And so when I ran the estimates, and this is, again, I can talk through how we get to the estimates, but these are just estimates, and I'm going to take you through the mechanics of how a TIF plan is adopted and how it's implemented. But right now, I'm estimating that the city's portion of the bond value is about $3.3 million. And if he builds all $52 million and the assessor assesses it based on what I believe the estimate will be, the county's portion will be about $1 million. So he's going to be able to get about $4.5 million back for the $9.5 million of eligible expenses under the TIF statute. And that's because that's all the tax revenue that's going to be available if we exclude the three medical buildings based on what the city's already pledged and what we're asking the county to pledge, which is 75% of the increase in taxes on the balance of the project that's just retail related. So the process under the statute is we come before the board with an initial resolution, which you have, I believe, here, which is saying we want to set a public hearing on such and such a date. You set a date, typically it's at the next board meeting, on the matter of the Legacy Park TIF plan for Jackson County. And then you're authorizing the clerk to advertise that public hearing one time in the Sun Herald. It has to be at least 10 days before the public hearing, not more than 20 days. And at that time, once that publication goes out, there'll be a draft of the actual TIF plan at the clerk's office for the public to review. TIF plans typically are 60 to 90 pages long. They address the 12 articles of the statute that are required by law to be addressed. And so then we come to the next meeting, we have the public hearing. Typically, I will open it up and explain effectively a simple version of what I'm trying to do tonight and about the project. And it's an opportunity for the public to say, I don't understand what you're building. Can you tell me about this? And that's where the developer would be here to talk about the development and the impact of the development as it relates to the community, the public. Then the board would close that public hearing, and the next resolution would be to adopt the plan. And when you adopt the plan, you're simply authorizing the plan. You're establishing a legal metes and bounds description. These parcels are what are in that TIF district, and any expenses that are incurred within that legal metes and bounds description that are TIF-related expenses that are defined and approved by the bond attorney based on what the Attorney General allows in terms of expenses, sidewalks, streets, curb, gutter, utility connections, the things that I mentioned earlier. Those expenses that are incurred on that property is what is eligible for reimbursement. And then through a whole series of process that's administered typically by the city as a lead agent, they will then issue a bond once all the requirements have been met by the developer. So I want to talk through that.
Who issues the bond?
The city is the one that typically administers the bond. It can be the city and the county.
It may be a terminology thing, but, I've always had issues with stating that there's no public funds involved with this, right? The city's issuing the bond.
But they're not guaranteeing the bond.
But they paying the bond.
They're facilitating payment of the bond, I think would be a clearer way
Right,
of
if
saying
it
that.
wasn't public funds, we wouldn't be sitting here tonight. The city has to pay, the developer has to pay taxes, will go to the tax collector. Tax collector will settle it to the county will settle it to the city, and the city will settle it. It's public funds, I don't see.
Public funds, but what I'm trying to say is that I'm a Jackson County resident and I pay taxes. My tax dollars are not going to the reimbursement of that to that developer for that infrastructure, period.
Right.
It's only the
But if you don't
developer's
consider it
taxes.
public funds, then he's not paying any taxes at all. I mean, he's paying his taxes. It's current, there's no current public funds being used.
That's right.
But future tax dollars, public funds will go to pay for the infrastructure, correct?
Yes.
In an example, like you live in a neighborhood that was developed at one time, do you?
I'm sorry?
If you live in a neighborhood that was built and developed at one time by a developer,
Sort of, yeah.
they foot the bill for all of that. And they include the price of footing that bill to the people who buy the houses.
Yeah.
And the way I understand TIF and the way I always look at it, one of three things are the conditions that I always look at before we give future taxpayer dollars that don't exist today to a developer to incentivize a project. The first one would be is if there's competition with other locations and we want to win the competition. So you've got to sweeten the pot a little bit. That's one way I would look at it. Another is if the area needs a bump. It's a project that's a good project, but the numbers aren't quite good enough to really justify taking a big risk, so you need a bump to make it happen. And the third one would be is if the quality of the project is going to be dramatically improved or it's going to be a better project overall. And if one of those is met, then I say, okay. The next question I ask is, will the county taxpayers have more money in their coffers after the project is completed than they did before? And whatever the causes is, whether it's loss of money somewhere else or something going on with having to increase some type of fire protection or hospital or whatever it is, and if that loss offsets the gain, then it's automatic, no, it's not a project that I would vote a TIF for. And that's usually why we conduct these talks with the developer and look at the project, and we tell them that up front, and they don't bring it if it doesn't meet those criteria.
I would never bring a TIF plan or proposal to the board that's residential. It makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Have you ever done a medical TIF?
A medical TIF?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing one at Will Market as
Will
well.
Market, right. Okay.
In Harrison
But
County.
now, is it competing with Harrison County Memorial, or are they partnering with Memorial?
I have, again, no idea. I don't get in at the development level. It's not really my role. My role is to do the TIF plan itself. I have no idea. I know that it was highly supported by the city and the county. I think we got all unanimous votes on both boards. It's a very similar project, frankly, that'll be right at the Will Market
But you
exit.
don't know if they're partnering with Memorial?
I don't get in at that level typically. It's not really my business. But, Mr. Ross, you sort of hit on a big item, your last one, that I want to talk about. How does this benefit the community and Jackson County in general? Right now, you've got Highway 57, which is a commercial corridor, and it's one of the last corridors that's not been developed. City of Goshen has not seen any significant development in a long, long time. I heard that very clearly at the city meeting, how so many opportunities have come and gone and that they hadn't been seized. I live in Ocean Springs, right near Goshen, so that's where I am. I'm in Mr. Bossard's district. But when you take an empty piece of land that has no infrastructure and you spend $52 million and build that infrastructure to the city specifications, they're not just going to let them build a sewer that serves just that 19, or he also has another 35 acres. They're going to require that the sizing of all of this utility connection can be utilized for the whole area. This tax assessor is going to come in and not only assess this property, but all the properties that are near the property are now going to go up in value because you've created a new market. There's going to be a lot of traffic. There's going to be a lot of market demand. When I build things like hotels, and I do a lot of hotels, it's not uncommon to see restaurants and gas stations popping up around because they benefit from the spin-off of that. Just the first phase of this particular project, which is the initial $27 million, it's going to generate 174 new jobs at about $5.6 million in payroll. It's going to generate $24,700,000, let me make sure I got that right number, yeah, $24,700,000 of new retail sales. Those are net new sales. We don't count for, well, I'm not going to eat a hamburger here, I'm going to eat it here. We actually take out about 20% of the existing sales from the projected numbers from the tenants that are being modeled out here. And so it creates new jobs, it creates new sales tax revenue. The school district benefits immediately because you can't pledge school taxes. The county, not only in this case, we're only asking for up to 75%, But when the county assessor comes through and they change the assessment every 4 years, any increase in taxes goes straight to the coffers of the county. Any excess revenues that are paid in go to the county coffers. Until bonds are issued, all taxes are going into the county's general fund just like anything else. So there's huge economic value, there's huge spinoff. Just the construction of it, which we're estimating to be between 18 and 24 months in the first phase, will generate about 175 direct construction jobs, but then there's other spinoff, the people who are providing the material and the gas and the metal and the lumber and all of these things. So there's huge economic value in commercial developments. But residential, I totally concur. Not only is it homestead and you've got disabled veterans, there's not a lot of revenue in Avalorum with homes, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because it doesn't create jobs. It's just a house. And so, way back in the 1800s, people paid their own sidewalks by running foot, was the way it was done in the old days. Now it's just sort of the developer builds the road and they turn it over and put a bond on it. So I totally agree with you on that. This project's a substantial project. It has a huge opportunity. The real money in this project is in the retail center. I understand, having had 3 heart attacks and I have a huge collection of stents, I understand how important that hospital is. I've been a member of it. I think I know everybody by name now in there. I can get my way through the surgical room. So I understand on a real basis how important that hospital is, and I understand the nature of the feelings that have been around the community. I've not been involved in the Facebook stuff. I don't look at it. I don't get involved in the development because it's not my role. My role is to present an economic development opportunity where we have a developer who can just build their medical facility, which is what he's pivoting towards, just put it right on the highway, don't have all that infrastructure, just build his medical facility and call it quits. Or we can actually create a whole lot more revenue, jobs, goods and services that are not in the market, improve quality of life, which is so important. Quality of life is your school district, your home values, your crime levels, and the things that you can do with your family. The park that they're wanting to build, all these ancillary things that are part of this project are strictly to create a community center for the city of Goshen. And it doesn't have to be built, but it's an opportunity. But like any private developer, just like any of you, when you invest your own money, you can invest in the stock market, you can build in any town in the country you want to, or anywhere in the world, frankly. It's hard sometimes in these smaller communities to make a $52 million investment, 25 million of it being in retail, and expect a return on investment that will work. And it's not just the developer. I mean, people don't understand when you're a developer, you have to put 25, 35% cash down and you're borrowing money from a bank. Well, the bank's underwriting of the project is substantial. They're not going to say, you can't say, well, I want to build an 11,000 square foot retail center. I need $10 million to build it. They're going to want to see leases, executed leases by real tenants. So the developer has letters of interest. He's not executing leases until he has a deal. He has to have the whole project in order to go forward. And it's a fluid type of development. I had one of you ask me, tell me exactly who's coming in. Well, developers are not going to tell you who they're making deals with because it's at risk at that point. And so it's not uncommon for the development and the specifics of the development to be kept close hand. But I guess I want the community to know, if you adopt this TIF plan and he never builds a thing, it didn't cost you a penny. In fact, the $100 that you'll spend at Sun Herald to advertise the public hearing, you can send the bill to the developer because you can't pay that either. You cannot spend one penny of your current public monies or any other source of monies on a TIF plan or the implementation of a TIF plan or the repayment of the TIF plan. So there's no risk to the city or the county or the public. It's kind of like, do you want to induce and help encourage growth or you don't? And you got to make a choice. Does this project warrant it or not? It's the Nissan dealership that we're finished with now. I guarantee would not be there had you not done that. It would not have been built. It couldn't have been built.
Most of those deals, though, I mean, the county did know who the tenant was. We knew it was going to be a Nissan dealership. We knew the Bass Pro. We generally, the TJ Maxx, the Denny Ave, we generally do know what we're building. We don't just go out.
You have an idea what you're building, but not a company specific. Because like the Ice House project, you don't know what he's putting in on that project, but you know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know. It's not they're not going to share that with me even. But what I get is the modeling numbers, I get the data so that I can project values, so I can give you estimates that are ballpark. But I kind of wanted to take y'all real quickly for the public's benefit through this process, because I think it's really, really important that they understand that. So,
Is the $371,000 a year that the county would gain in revenue for ad valorem adjusted for half of the, instead of 52 million?
no, that's the total.
So that number of 371 a year to the county is going to be half that.
Roughly, it's a little more than half.
So you'd be talking about
Because
$200,000
$25 million of the
How much of a 52 would
TIF
be
be
can you even
retail.
pay for with $200,000 a year?
About $1 million.
Right, so less than $1 million TIF.
It's 988 is
Out
what
of
I
a $52
estimate.
million project.
Mr. Lyons, thank you for presenting the information tonight. I know we've worked together on several projects, and I appreciate you. I appreciate your work. We've done some good stuff together. But I do have a few questions for you. And first, I want to kind of go over a Facebook post, and I know that you're not a Facebook
I don't do
guy.
it. Sorry.
But I think you might be able to help answer the question
Okay.
that the post talks about. And I'm going to quote, and this came from Legacy Park's Facebook page. It says, our TIF representative, Lawrence Lyons, has presented to Josh Eldridge and Brian Fulton on multiple occasions to request that our TIF proposal, without the medical portion, be reviewed and put on the agenda for a vote. In fact, he's on his way there today to make another request. Every single time, he's been told they will not even consider bringing it up for a vote unless we partner with SRHS on the medical portion. I don't believe those are your words, Mr. Lawrence.
Those are not my words, but we did,
Let me ask you a couple questions on it. I think you can help answer these. So prior to last week,
Yeah, I didn't write that for sure.
I know you didn't. Prior to last week, when was the last time that we discussed this project, me and you?
Probably in May of last year.
Okay. Prior to last week, when was the last time that you presented a document to me regarding this project?
You mean the first time or?
Well,
April.
Last
It
time.
would have been April
The
of
last time,
24.
Yeah. Okay. Prior to last week, have you ever presented a document to me regarding this development that contemplated a TIF that did not include the medical portion of the project?
Not in a paper, no.
Okay. Did a document like this even exist? I mean, have you, before last week?
Yes.
Okay.
In April.
I had never seen it before last week. Prior to last week, have you ever asked me to place a document on the Board of Supervisors' agenda related to this development?
No.
Okay. For the record, when did you send the latest summary and economic development document to us for review?
Last Tuesday, Wednesday.
Last Wednesday?
Something like that.
Yeah. So the Facebook post was completely false, right?
Well, I think I'm not going to defend it, and I definitely don't want to get in the middle of all
I
of
just
it.
really wanted to
But we
clear that
did
up.
have an
But
informal
since it mentioned my
conversation.
name in there, I wanted to make that clear, okay? So on the development piece, I got a couple questions. Who owns the property where the proposed development is located?
I believe the LLC is ATM Building,
ATM
ADM
Holdings?
Holdings LLC.
Who is ATM Holdings?
It's a group of investors. I know Dr. Adlatka, another doctor, there's other people. I have no idea who they are.
Okay. Who's developing the property? Who's the developer?
It's the same
It's
LLC.
the same group, okay. Is all the development that you talked about today included on a single parcel of land?
No, there's multiple parcels, I believe.
On what you talked about today, or what you bringing before us tonight, is on multiple parcels of land?
I believe
I
that
don't
there are
think so.
3 separate parcels within that 19 and a half acres, but I may be incorrect on that.
It's one parcel. At least that's the way it shows on the tax parcel ID map.
All right, and I'm staying corrected then. There's a separate 35 acres that's for a future phase.
Can you please read the title of the proposed tax increment financing plan?
Well, we haven't written the plan, but
Me last week.
that was just a summary. It was an economic impact summary.
No, the one that you sent that was attached to the request to put the public hearing on the agenda.
Yeah, I can tell you what I would call it if that's what you're asking me.
Yeah, what did you call it?
I would have called it, well, read it, whatever it says, it just.
Highway 57 Medical Arts Facility, Hotel, and Retail Development. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the same name we use with the city, but I put Jackson County when I do the county, and I do the city of Goshen.
And so can you
And the
please, you list the uses within the proposed development as shown in the most recent summary that you provided? just the uses, like the square footages and all that stuff?
There's an estimate of how the
Yeah.
uses are going to be.
Can you read those, please?
Sure. The initial phase of Legacy Park, a medical and retail center estimated in Phase 1, which is primarily the medical buildings, it includes $25 million, which include the construction of a 10,500 square foot cardiac ambulatory surgical center, a 3,330 square foot vascular surgical center, a 5,500 square foot endoscope center, a 24,200 square foot medical complex that will provide professional offices spaces for physicians and related medical personnel. It's a home health care provider and a retail center that's 11,400 square feet.
There were some condos, I believe, in Phase 2, is that correct?
Yep. I think the hotel is also sort of slated for Phase 1 as well, but we didn't have the specifics, so it's not in the summary.
Condo portion where it talks about that?
Yep. In future phases, anticipated that development will construct an additional 60,000 square feet of commercial space, including additional retail sales, a franchise hotel, various restaurant venues, other professional offices and services such as commercial housing with an estimated 50 townhomes above the retail center to support the medical arts facility and staffing needs.
To support the medical center, right? Okay. So how does this proposal that we've talked about not include a medical component?
I think the surgical center, the actual medical buildings, the 3 medical buildings that are the primary buildings for medical, they are offering for you to just simply exclude those ad valorem revenues towards the repayment of the debt instrument and simply use the retail center and hotel and restaurants as the revenue source that you're going to pledge.
So because the county won't pledge future ad valorem taxes from the medical portion of the project, you're saying that the taxes that are pledged from the non-medical portion will not benefit the overall project?
I didn't say that.
Okay. Well, that's
No,
kind
I'm
of what
saying-
it alludes to online. It kind of
No,
sounds
no,
like
no,
that.
not at all. I think Mr. Ross captured it correctly in his question. I'm estimating right now that, let me get back to the number, that the county's increase in ad valorem tax is roughly $371,000 if he does all phases of the project, and a little less than half of that number, so it's about $129,000 of that 371 would be what's going to be pledged towards a debt instrument that'll generate about $988,000 of actual bond value. That'll come to about $4.4 million total with the city's 3.3, and there'll be about $9.5 million of actual eligible expenses. So the developer will still be paying for about $5 million of that.
That are non-medical TIF because you're not taxing the medical portion of it, or you're not
I'm not asking you to
pledging
pledge those taxes. They'll be
from the
taxed, and you'll
non-medical
receive
portion
those
of it.
monies.
But the taxes that you do pledge from the non-medical buildings can be used in the area where the medical is, right? Anywhere within the district.
The
right?
infrastructure, TIF-related expenses are TIF-related expenses.
Right.
So it'll be same water and sewer, same,
Yeah, you have
Right.
$9.5 million of TIF expenses.
at Lockett Drive, all that, you could use that money on all that. They're
And you
not-
don't, it doesn't there's no rationale to segregate the expense. You're segregating the way you repay the debt instrument. So we're asking you to pledge 75% of the retail-related ad valorem tax. You keep 100% of the other money that's medical-related, and whatever you can contribute based on your pledge towards the total debt instrument will generate roughly $1 million of bond value towards the reimbursement of $9.5 million of TIF-related expenses.
So it's a single development, common ownership. I mean, it's one big development, common ownership, right? I just don't see how the two can be separated. I don't know how you can say that one doesn't help the other, regardless of how the tax dollars are pledged. It's the same roads, same infrastructure, it's all the same. True?
I really don't even understand the direction of the question, because I don't even understand your question really, I guess, at the end of the day. You have expenses. He can build the medical buildings facing Highway 57, which is his current
Is that-
strategy right
that's his
now.
current plan. What is he currently, if the county don't do anything, right, what's the current plan?
What he indicated to me, and again, I'm not talking to these people daily, I'm not in the detail, but basically they're going to build their 3 medical buildings facing 57. there won't be a need for a boulevard and all that infrastructure. It's much lower. The $9.5 million will drop down remarkably. They'll just build their medical facilities and be finished.
Yeah, so they're.
But in order to
Winter-
develop that land all the way back, they've got to do retention ponds, they want to do the parks and all these other things that are TIF-eligible expenses that will enhance the project and create a town center. And those expenses are right now estimated at $9.5 million. The city's pledged roughly $3.3 million back towards their TIF plan that was adopted in April. They're asking you, in effect, to pledge $1 million, which is less, it's really less than a third of the revenue that you're going to be receiving from the total project. And this is all based on him actually building it, getting a certificate of occupancy, and the assessor actually assessing these values. It doesn't matter what I estimated here. It's 3 years down the road when the assessor comes in and puts a real value on it.
So you don't know if he's building anything right now?
He may build nothing, and it didn't cost you anything.
I mean,
But if he builds
But we don't know right now. Is he building something? Is he not building something?
I know that the developer is prepared to move forward immediately with his medical buildings. I know he has
With the
funding in
with
place,
the-
he's got his permits in place, and he's ready to build and is building.
He's
They,
immediately ready to construct this
I
circuit.
believe
center.
they've already broken ground.
Okay.
I think they're moving dirt. I think they're ready to go. The issue is, how is he going to develop it? And the reason I think that I'm here now with short notice, because when I sent you that document, I think I had 3 days, hey, I'm not building this whole center, and there was a big outcry, and then I got called at 8 in the morning and
We
said,
ain't blaming you. We got you're
I
the
understand, but
representative.
my
We gotta
point
ask
is
the
I
question.
think that I'm here trying to save a much larger project.
Yeah.
That'll have the retail center and the park and the hotel and the restaurants. It's kind of, they can go either way.
Right.
And if you're an investor and you're a physician's group and you want to build a medical facility for your occupation and that's what you do for a living, kind of makes sense. If you want to speculate on making money as a developer, building a bigger facility and spending another $25 million, it needs to make economic sense. And right now it's not. And that's why they're asking for this inducement from you to support the project. And you're not using anybody else in this room's money. You're going to use money this developer will pay as a result of building the project.
What did they break ground on the other day? I mean, I saw the,
I know they had a groundbreaking, and I know that they started mobilizing, but I think that there's been, because of all of this emotion in our community, that it's just not worth it. And so there's been a lot of beating up, and that's when I believe he put an announcement out maybe a week ago. Forget it. I'm
think
just
the
going to build my medical facility and
I
forget
think the
it.
announcement said something like, since the county wouldn't pledge their TIF, that we can't do the rest of the development. I think that was the gist of it.
Right.
Well, that's why I'm here. That's
Right.
why I'm
Well,
here,
and that's
trying
what-
to help fix that.
And that's kind of, yeah, that's, because, right, we're having a public meeting, not a public hearing, right? Like, there's a distinction.
This is a discussion, but when, the statutory requirement is that you have a public hearing to discuss the TIF plan that I haven't written, that's not on file with the Chancery Clerk, that hasn't been advertised.
Right.
But I would have my developer here
But
for a
have you ever
public
done-
hearing.
Have you ever done a public hearing if the county or the city wasn't on board with doing the project?
No, I always
No.
come to
So-
a city and a county
right, so-
informally first.
So it's
and-
not typical to be here for this, and this is what they, well, this is not
Well,
typical.
no. My normal process over the last 15 years of doing these plans, or 16 years, whatever it's been, is I have an informal summary that I distribute saying, hey, I've got a developer, he's wanting to do this project, this is what it looks like. And I generally ask to get on your agenda, just like I am right now, and provide a very, very simple summary of the economic impact of the project. And what I'm asking you to do tonight, or the next board meeting, is to adopt that resolution, which doesn't obligate you to anything other than, we're going to have a public hearing, and we're going to authorize advertising. And Lawrence, you go off and spend 40 hours writing an 80-page document that all the attorneys are happy with, and we'll make it available to the public, and then we'll have that discussion, and the developer will be in the room.
Right.
And then I'll ask you to adopt the plan, and if you do authorize and adopt the plan, then you're now saying to the developer, okay, we're accommodating you, go build your project, we'll see you when you're finished.
Right, and I'm good with
That's
that,
effectively what I do for a
But-
living.
But we gotta get back, the reason we was here tonight is because, like Brian said, they put all this out on social media.
Can't do anything about that, it's
They're,
not
they're
me.
your clients, all right, and they said that me and Brian refused to put you on the agenda. Once again, to clarify.
I have not asked you to put me on the
Never
agenda.
asked us to put you
I
on the
was-
agenda.
it was just
Numerous times they'd asked, but we refused.
All of our conversation was made clear to me back in the spring that there was an encouragement for the hospital and the doctor group to work it out because it was not going to go forward, and there's no sense in coming in.
That's right.
And that's what I've done. I've been in the hole.
Absolutely. For the way this project was presented to us originally, right, was as a medical thing. Well, it has, the citizens own the health system. So for it to be a win for the entire county, the view, overwhelming view at that time was, make it a win for the health system. You know, that has to be negotiated out with the health system. If it's a loss for the health system and a win for a certain group, then it's probably not best overall for the county. And that was, I mean, that was it. You know, it wasn't, hey, we don't do the project, we're against the project.
I have no complaints personally at Jackson County. Y'all been great to work with. I want to continue to work with you.
Okay.
I am an independent body here, but I will say that this is a very challenging project because there's so much at hand. You kind of got multiple hats on your heads. But I hate to see all of this opportunity in terms of goods and services and jobs and quality of life and an opportunity maybe for Goshen to be redefined, to be thrown out.
Come on. This is a $55 million project. $55 million projects, and less than $1 million is going to make it or break it?
No.
Come on.
It's 20% of the total cost of the
Come on.
project is the infrastructure.
What's the projected sales the projected sales for all of these things?
24,700,000 a year.
Per year. So a project that's gonna generate $24 million a year.
It'll generate
it's gonna be
$1,700,000
broken
to the
over a
state.
15-year span.
I'm sorry?
So a project that's gonna generate $24 million a year in
Right.
sales tax is gonna be made or
No, no,
broken
no,
by
no,
less
no.
than $1 million over 15 years.
No, sir. It's 24 million in gross retail sales. It'll generate $1,729,000 to the state at that 7%, and the state rebates to the city 18.5% of the 7%. So the city's benefit is $319,865 annually is what we're projecting if all phases of the project are built.
And the only part that the county would do an ad valorem for would be less than $1 million, and that's $1 million over the life of the 15 years. That's a total from that $130,000 every year for 15 years.
Well, let me answer that two ways so that there's clarity. So remember I told you you're adopting and authorizing a plan and a legal meets and bounds description, but you're also authorizing or putting a limit of how much can be issued in that district for what period of time. And so our TIF plans are typically have a 25-year shelf life, meaning bonds can be issued in one or more series, and they all have to be paid off within 25 years. And the limit on the plan that the city adopted was $5 million. And that $5 million figure was created because we thought we had about $4.5 million of TIF eligible expenses back in the spring. We're now looking at $9.5 million. And so as an inducement, if you're trying to encourage more development, this developer has secured another 35 acres that fronts to 90. And if this development is successful, they'd like to continue investing in the area and grow it even further. The question is, do you want to continue to support additional growth in the area with additional infrastructure? So maybe the right answer is that there should be a bigger limit than 5 million so that you could do another bond later on if they do an additional 20 million of retail or whatever the scenario is. Can also tell you that there are other developers now looking at 57 as a result of this project because they want to jump on it as well because of the traffic change. So this is economic development. You're creating growth in an area, but you got to have the infrastructure to support it.
Question for
And
the
y'all don't
city.
have
I
the
don't
money
know.
to build these roads and infrastructure sitting in your bank. And that's why TIF is invented in the first place. You're saying to the developer, you build our infrastructure at your cost, your risk, and we'll reimburse you to the best of our ability with the taxes you're going to pay up to the amount that those taxes allow and up to the amount that you pledge. That's all a TIF plan's doing. If he
This
doesn't
may be a
build it,
question
then
Mr.
for
Palmer,
the
do you
city.
have a question?
Yeah, Mr. Lyons, let me ask you just a few questions, if I may.
sure.
You mentioned that most of the time that these TIF plans are presented to the board and they decide in general if they want to move forward with it. Most of the time that's done in executive session, is it not?
I usually, like for Jackson County, I usually call Brian first and send him get a meeting or send him a project summary and say, I've got a developer in this and it's just sort of an informal process. Is this something we can go forward with? But the real process is what I'm doing right now.
Right.
It's a real simple project summary. I email it to y'all. I come here and I say, hey, I got a developer, they want to build a Nissan dealership, and they want to build a Ford dealership, and here's why it's not financially feasible, and this is what we need for your help. And you either say, I agree or I don't agree. I look for sort of a thumbs up. Typically, the board president will say, go forward. And then I go off and actually do all the work of writing the documents, and then we come forward with the resolutions, and we've gone through your bond attorney at that point.
And one of the, just so you'll know, just so we're clear, and I'm not trying to beat up on anybody or,
I feel like I'm on trial, I got to tell you.
well, unfortunately, you're the only one here,
Yay, me.
to ask these questions of. But my question is this, or my comment is this, we're having a 6 o'clock meeting on a Monday night for a reason, 6 o'clock in the evening. And the biggest reason for that is because of all this information that's been put out on Facebook. And in my humble opinion, a lot of that information has been nothing more than absolutely false, okay? And so the public has generated tremendous interest in this TIF, right? Which may or may not go forward, may or may not be good. But in order to let anybody and everybody ask what questions they want and to ask you questions so everybody will be on the same page, we've had this public meeting at 6 o'clock, and I don't know how long it's going to last. There's no time limit on tonight's meeting. We may be here till 9, 10, 11 o'clock tonight, which is fine. But when you sent over the economic impact highlights last week, there was an indication that Dr. Edlaka wanted to calm things down, right? Is that in general a correct statement?
I became aware of, I guess, I'm sorry, but I'm a little naive as it relates to Facebook. I'm too old for it, I guess. I don't know, but I became aware of a lot of unnecessary language going from different sides. And I made a big deal about that. You know, how can I possibly go forward to a public body asking for help and an economic inducement if you're lobbing bombs and stuff? And I believe an apology came, and all of that was pulled back down off of the Facebook. But I don't know it because I don't look at it.
Well, in essence, this board, and I don't vote, I have no say in the vote, but this board is being asked, in essence, to partner with Dr. Edlaka, Dr. Tassan on this project to the extent of the TIF that you've described. And just for your information, you know, if you go all the way back to May of 2024, looking at my notes, Dr. Edlaka had indicated to Ken Taylor, Mr. Taylor, that things are only going to get worse the more you contest us. And then if you move forward into February of this year, words were used on Facebook such as mafia, corruption, extortion, forced bribes, coercion, racketeering, criminal conduct. Then on February 25, corruption. And then on February 26th, the Board of Supervisors meeting tonight is going to be a one-sided power play to continue the narrative, not an open forum. Mr. Cumbus said this is an open forum. We'll be here as long as we need to be. Every single question will be asked. Nothing is off the table. And then the last Facebook post was that this is nothing tonight. This is nothing more than an open forum circus. And my question is, you understand the difficulty of this board wanting to partner with, or at least questioning pretty hard, partnering with somebody that's accusing them of being criminal, part of the mafia, corrupt, extorting money from people, I guess, criminal, et cetera, et cetera. The Attorney General and the State Auditor need to be involved in this. You understand the difficulty of this entire evening, don't you?
I understand, having been a former mayor for 8 years, I understand the nature of politics. I understand this destructive language. I'm thrilled that I'm not a part of Facebook. You made me feel good about it now.
But there is.
But in all fairness, you know, I'm an economic developer, and I see a huge, substantial project that I think makes a huge difference to the city of Gaucher. And I was at that public hearing completely. I understand what's upsetting everybody. I get it. But I can tell you, like Mr. Taylor, for instance, he was at that meeting, and it was a very live meeting. And there was a lot of language. It started way back in the spring.
Right,
And-
this board was even called selfish by a Goche city councilman, were they not?
But I'm guessing what I'm trying to say is that I am not here before you tonight to defend language, to participate in any of this dialogue. That's not my role. My role is to be a technician, a consultant, someone that you trust. I'm not bringing something bad before this board because then you'll say, don't come back again, and I'm effectively out of business. It's not my role. My role is to help you adopt a plan if you want to help induce this plan to go forward. I genuinely believe this developer is just going to build their medical buildings on the face of 57 if we don't get support from the county. They're not interested in being at war with you. They're not interested in any more of the language or the battling. They just want to invest in this community and be successful. And the atmosphere is so corrosive right now, they're just like, forget it. We'll just do what we're going to do, that we do for a living, and call it quits. And I guess as an economic developer and as a resident of Jackson County, I'd hate to see $25 million and really other growth that I'm aware of in the area that hasn't come forward not happen because a bunch of people are fighting over a problem that really doesn't have a great, easy answer.
Right.
I was hoping the partnership would work, and I even personally got involved trying to encourage this dialogue with the hospital. Josh knows that, Brian knows that. Lawrence,
Right.
everybody knows that I was trying in a quiet way to help.
Let me be clear, I don't think
But
anybody.
I don't want to be the poster child here that's going to get beat up because of things other people said that I'm not even reading, so I can't help you with that.
And I don't think anybody here, I've heard nobody speak
been terrible, though.
any ill will of you, any ill will of you.
I understand, but what you said, it's
But-
terrible. It's terrible for everybody.
Right, at the same
In that Goche
time.
meeting, did Mr. Taylor get to speak at that Goche meeting?
I'm sorry?
At that Goche meeting you talking about, did Mr. Taylor get to speak at that meeting?
He did.
I sure did. For 3
Very strong,
minutes.
very strong. A lot of people spoke, in fact.
Just a couple more questions. I guess my point was at the same time that Dr. Adlaka was asking you to maybe help tone down the rhetoric, at the same time that email was sent, there were things being posted on Facebook, just the opposite, turning up the rhetoric, trying to force the board. So I just want to make that point. Now, let me ask you this. You've worked with the county before, and we've had successful TIF agreement, Nissan dealership. I'm assuming you don't find any of the gentlemen up here to be part of the mafia, corrupt, criminal.
No, I've had nothing but good relation with all of them.
You don't share that, those words, do you?
No, sir.
Okay.
So you say
Now-
that's completely false, what they've been putting out then?
I don't know why you're asking me such a question. I swear to God, I feel like I'm on trial here.
All right. Mr. Lyons, let me ask you this.
I have no problem with any of you, not a single person in this room. But I also don't have a problem with the developer wanting to spend $52 million on an empty piece of land in a city that is in desperate need of new development.
Okay.
That's my job.
Let me kind of turn the narrative a little bit for the sake of clarity. And as I understand it, you're trying to propose a TIF that'll be worth, from the county, about $988,000, a little bit.
I hope it's more because that means he invested more. But that's what I'm
Okay.
estimating based on the current numbers.
If we just say $1 million for the sake of discussion, the $1 million is needed to make this, maybe not 52 million, because roughly about 30 million, a little bit less than 30 million of it is the hotel and the shops and restaurants and all that.
25 million is
Okay.
the non-medical.
So just so we're clear, we're here over $1 million. $1 million, right now, the project doesn't make financial sense. With $1 million, it does make financial sense.
I think I want to answer that in two ways.
Okay.
And being very genuine with you here. First of all, I want to reemphasize, the total infrastructure cost is $9.5 million. That's about 20% of the total project.
I got it.
If the city and the county participate, you'll break that down to about 10%, maybe 12% of that cost. It is a lot of money. $1 million is a lot of money, and we shouldn't minimize that. But I really think, based on the dialogue that I've had with the doctor, that this is more about, does the community want this or they don't want it? It's not, it's like, why would you not want to support this larger development? If he cannot make a return on investment he's not going to make the investment, nor is the bank going to lend the money. And so the county either wants to encourage this and shore this up so that it's feasible, just like Mr. Ross talked about at the beginning, or you don't.
I understand all
And I
that.
think what's happened is, I'm here formally now asking you, in the normal way that I would, normally it's in the morning, but I'm here, and I'm saying, guys, do you want to induce this investment or you don't?
Look, I understand all that, and I'm not trying to
And I'm
minimize $1
sorry
million.
all these
but-
bad words have happened. I'm really sorry about it, but I can't.
I'm not trying to minimize $1 million, but everything in life is relative, right? $1 million compared to 30 million
It's a
versus
lot
$1
of
million
money.
versus $1 million compared to 10 million.
It's a
Now,
lot of money.
okay, so let me ask you this. Am I correct that as it stands now, without this $1 million, the project does not make financial sense?
I believe if the county's not willing to support the project, they're going to build just the medical facility and not build the retail center. And they're going to build it in such a way that we can't build the retail center later.
Okay.
I spent a weekend begging them to at least leave the layout of the land open because we don't know what the future is going to hold, so that we could revisit this maybe later. And basically, they came back as a response and said, go back to the county, ask them formally to vote on it, because if they will, we'll go forward with the original plan, and if they don't, then we're going to go forward with just our buildings. That is the truth of what's happened here. I believe that's why I'm here, and I literally had 2 hours' notice to produce the document that y'all are referencing, so that I could get it to you.
So on February 20, just a couple of weeks ago, on Facebook, they said, the developer said, developer's words, not mine, without the county TIF, this does not make financial sense for us to proceed. Okay? So my point is that this project has been presented on Facebook in a lot of different ways by individuals as some type of transformative project for this area and for Goche, and it may very well be. I understand. I've been driving by there for 60 years, 50 years. I get it. But, I mean, is that kind of a good generalization that this undeveloped land could be transformational for this intersection?
I believe that whole, from the highway all the way to 90 could be completely redefined very quickly if there was a focus on that area.
Okay.
I think that's a premium commercial area for development.
Right. Okay. So here's my question.
But you don't have any infrastructure to
What I'm trying to get
support it.
down to just dollars and cents. Maybe this board supports it. Maybe this board doesn't. Maybe they have a difference of opinion with regard to certain things. That's not my call, right? But if this project is going to generate all this revenue, and if I know you don't look on Facebook, but we're talking about on February 25 of this year, millions in sales tax revenue, et cetera, et cetera. They put on there that they've been approached by venture capitalists who want the development, which now expands another 45 acres, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are other ways, are there not, for the developer to get this $1 million. In other words, Goche could come in and spend $1 million on infrastructure improvements, and it would be the same thing. That would be done up front. It'd be the same thing as this board approving the TIF. If this project is such a home run.
But it's not the same thing.
Why is it not?
Because if the city of Goche goes and issues a general obligation bond or goes into their reserve account to spend $1 million, that's money directly from the tax base of the city
I
of
understand
Goche.
that. I understand that.
Under
That's
the TIF, you're
Goche.
using the developer's
That's
tax dollars.
wait a minute. That's Goche tax revenue for a Goche project. My question is, I understand it would be tax revenue and taxes from Goche residents going into this project today, but the $1 million in infrastructure improvements, if Goche chose to do that for this project, would be the same thing practically for the project as this board issuing a TIF bond for $1 million to pay back development costs some years later.
Same
If
thing, meaning that the public infrastructure is built,
The
paid
public
for, and
in-
conveyed over to the city?
The
I guess,
$1
yes.
million gap is closed, correct? If this project is so transformative, and if this project is such a home run, and again, I'm not belittling the project, maybe it is, but that avenue is available if Goche wants to help with this project, correct? The county, you understand the county does that all the time. The county puts money into projects, right, that may or may not work. The county put $600,000 into the amphitheater before it ever opened, right?
The
And
county
that-
could come and do
and-
their own infrastructure improvements in the area with their own resources as well.
They,
It's an
they could,
alternative.
but my point is, just so we're clear, the Board of Supervisors, if they were to choose not to go with this project, that problem could be solved next board meeting if the Gautier City Council chose to say, look, we've got a difference of opinion with the Board of Supervisors. We, the city, will do $1 million worth of infrastructure improvements for you, and then the project makes financial sense.
I think that's a fair statement.
Okay. Have you happened to have read the settlement agreement with regard to the Belt property over in Gautier?
No, sir.
Okay, you don't know what the city has agreed to do with regard to infrastructure improvements in the
No,
Belt
sir.
property?
The only thing I've ever had, and it was 10 years ago, was when Walmart was trying to locate there. I was involved in that project briefly.
And
And
one
so
reason I asked you
haven't-
the question I asked you a minute ago about the city of Gautier, you were mayor of Vicksburg for 8 years,
Mm-hmm.
so you understand how city governments work and taking risk or not taking risk. But bottom line for everybody out here and everybody watching on Facebook is that if Gautier chose to do so, nothing legally prohibiting them or practically prohibiting them from saying to the developers, this is a home run, we want this, it's transformative for this area, we'll do $1 million worth of infrastructure improvements, boom, problem solved.
If they're able to issue a bond and they're able to pay that bond back and the tax base is willing to incur that, absolutely.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
May I ask a question as a citizen of Goshen? Did we not say there was a very successful groundbreaking about a month ago, 4 weeks ago, and then 2 or 3 weeks after that, they came out, the developers came out and said, well, if the county ain't gonna support this, we just can't build it. You agree with that?
That's effectively what I've heard. I wasn't at the groundbreaking, and again, I'm not reading all this stuff, but that's effectively
Okay, so
the
you-
message. But I think the result of that message is only because more cost engineer estimates came in, a lot more expense came in than was originally anticipated.
They've been working on
It's-
this project for years, and in 2 weeks after the groundbreaking, you had all the new engineering costs
Yeah,
come
because
in.
the wetland mitigation, the pond in the back, all of that stuff, much higher fees involved than what was estimated originally. They were literally moving forward with the project and got hit with some big numbers and said, this doesn't make any sense anymore. And the county's not happy and fighting us and all this stuff's going on Facebook.
Yeah.
This is my personal opinion of what happened, if you will. Y'all looking for it happening, but I don't really understand the line of questioning I'm getting here again tonight.
Well, the
I just feel like
developers,
I'm the voodoo doll up here. Let's
the
just stick some pins in
developers are
Lawrence for a
not
while.
here, they are not here to
They will be
answer.
here if y'all will just adopt the resolution to set a public hearing date, authorize advertising at one time. You can send the bill to the developer. Let's have a statutory correct public
Okay.
hearing, and I will make sure the developer's here, and y'all can ask all the developer questions you want.
Let me get back to my citizen negotiate question. If they decide that the retail is not feasible, then they're not going to do it. Does that not blow the TIF agreement with the city of Goshen out the back door?
No, it didn't blow it.
Oh, really? Have you read their reimbursement plan?
I'm-
It says every bit of the $50 million project must be developed or no TIF.
Okay, it doesn't.
do you know
exactly
that?
say, I don't agree it says that, but I didn't write that. That's your bond attorney, which happens to be their bond attorney, wrote that document.
Would you put $10 on it?
The project's being built in phases. Bonds are issued in one or more series.
Would you put $10 on
The
it?
spirit of that agreement is to build the project in its entirety, as it was envisioned. But I have never once in 20 years had a project build exactly the way it was anticipated, because you can't control future economic outcomes such as a new federal administration and tariffs going on and inflation coming. The world changes every day, and you know that. And so
Let me try it this way.
the city can rewrite that developers agreement at the next board meeting as they see fit and as is necessary to continue the development. And I can assure you, having spoken to the city, that if we went before the city and said, hey, we can't do this, we're just gonna build the $27 million medical facility, I think they'd be pretty happy about it still, and they'd be happy to amend that agreement. I have no reason to believe they wouldn't, let's put it that way. So that's just like a technical thing.
I know
That's not,
you feel like you're getting kind of hammered, bombarded with questions, and.
love it, I'm having the best time of my life.
You've always been professional with us, and this doesn't change.
And I don't wanna have a bad reputation with you, because I've got three
but the
other
pro-
deals in Jackson County.
But the problem is, we've never seen the board publicly attacked with the narrative
I
of things that
understand
you
everybody's
just,
upset, I get it.
with the things that just are completely false, because you drive economic development. Putting out there that the county's the mafia and racketeering don't drive economic development, it don't help the community. So, I mean, they kind of forced us in a position, we have to have a hearing to address all the misinformation, because, there's a lot of projects, not just this project going on there.
I get it. As mayor, in the 8 years that I was there, I had 38 children, and I was in rehab the entire time, even though I was on TV just about every day, okay? I get it. But I guess I'm just saying, I can't do anything about what other people say in a public media forums and throwing stuff. What I wanted to accomplish tonight is to let people know what the process is of TIF and what we really are asking for. And I don't think it's an unreasonable ask. I think it's in the best interest, this retail development. I understand there's a crisis as it relates to the medical relationship. And I really genuinely, as a citizen here and as a patient of that hospital, and I know I'm coming back, fix it. Let's fix this.
Right.
Grown people in a room, let's fix this. Instead of just beating each other up. But I think that the doctors group would like that as well. I think they just don't want to be in a hostile scenario
I
anymore.
understand. There's a lot of passion in this project. And now, nothing that was said up here didn't come directly from one of your two developers of that page, right? We ain't going off people's comments, right? I mean, those people can comment.
I don't know who said what, but
Okay.
I understand that
Well,
everybody's been upset. I had an earful from a lot of people. Let's put it that way.
You want to move on?
Thank you.
Yeah.
You done with me?
Thank you.
You may have some more questions. You can have a seat. I mean, but.
All right, great.
All right.
Ms. Lyons, you don't know if the ambulatory surgery center is being constructed, do you?
I'm sorry?
The cardiac surgery center, do you know if that's being constructed now?
I believe they're prepared to build that immediately. I think they have funding, the permits, and they're ready to go forward. I know that the CON's being appealed or something, but they were not concerned. They're going to go forward with it as far as I
Well,
know.
and the reason I asked that is I did some quick research, and there's an attorney general opinion that says they can't go forward. It's illegal.
I believe they're going to build the building, as far as I know.
I don't think
And I may not know, because I'm not in that circle, but the last I heard, they were going forward with the medical buildings and had funding and permits to build it.
Well, just so everybody will know, there is an attorney general opinion that says that if that building's going to cost more than $2 million, which I assume that it is, they cannot pour a slab, they can't build that building, they can't do anything until the appeal's over. If they do, that's another issue that we'll have to deal with. But
Not my issue.
I see.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence.
I'll hang out.
All right. You want,
I can't use it. No, not. I think Ken.
Okay.
you got a statement you want to make, Ken?
Four empty seats up front if anyone wants to come forward. I think we appreciate that presentation, but now I want to look at some of the incredible misinformation that Doctors Tassan and Adlaka have poured into our community. I think we disagree with what is best for our community. And that's common in government. If everyone here agreed on everything, it would be very different. Also, it is common for people to criticize public officials and decisions made by them, and sometimes speak badly about us. In my 21 and a half years in public office in the city of Goshen and in Jackson County, I have never seen such an orchestrated effort to destroy relationships by turning a city against its own county, as the doctors have done, the developers have done here with this project. We can sit here all night, and I hope we don't, but we could, and parse through all the allegations and misinformation circulated by the doctors regarding this project, and we've heard quite a bit of it already. These two doctors alone have already cost the county and the health system potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars, because that's what they want to do. There are numerous text messages, email. Someone say something?
The hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, we can have the health system speak to that if.
Yeah.
And we'll have them speak in a few minutes, but
Yeah,
they.
everyone's going to get a chance to talk.
Yeah.
Let him finish his statement. Everybody get a chance to finish your statement.
There are numerous messages, emails, social media posts, public records for anyone to see, telling the public they should no longer trust the guy who Dr. Tassan has named Crooked Ken Taylor, and that's me. I'm a member of the mafia, I'm a communist, I'm a racketeering guy. And I tell you what, I really feel like those guys are bullying me and this county. I really do. I've tried for over a year to make Legacy Park work because nobody loves the city of Goshen more than I do. I've been a resident there for over 50 years. I know Dr. Tassan has been a resident of Jackson County for just about 6 years, and that he lives in Ocean Springs, for whatever that's worth. These two developers are the ones who are now looking out for the best interest of the citizens, if you believe them. Although they claim I do not want this project, I and the Jackson County Chancery Clerk, Josh, and County Administrator, Brian, have all met with Dr. Adlaka on numerous occasions to try to make Legacy Park happen. I have text messages and emails for over a year to support what I'm saying here. I became involved because of negotiations falling through with Singing River Health System, which in my opinion jeopardized the entire project. The health system does not want to be part of this, did not want to be part of this ASC initially. The health system has no financial incentives to build an ACS in the middle of their 2 existing hospitals and 5 current cath labs. Singing River Health System felt there is not a medical need to justify either. How can doing heart procedures miles away from the operating rooms be the safest for the patients? From the health system's perspective, this was simply not a good plan. Rather, it was a way for the doctors to take significant revenue from the health system and divert it to their own pockets. Let's look at some history. I know how much the city of Goshen wants and needs development and commercial growth. So we continue to discuss the health system, possible ways for this project to make some sense. Ultimately, we came to an agreement that if the ASC was partnered only with Singing River Health System, and that if Singing River Health System got significantly more than the 19% that was offered, then it might be possible to make a deal. The city of Goshen could have their growth and development. The health system could keep the ever-present Memorial Merit threat at bay, and Singing River Health System could improve its relationship with the cardiologist. This proposed agreement led to many meetings with Dr. Adlaka. Nothing major to report from the first meeting other than he was quite confident in his project and that he still felt it would be in the best interest of the community to work together. However, according to Dr. Adlaka, the city of Goshen was supporting him, and he really didn't need the city, the county, or the health system support because he already had Memorial on board. The next couple of weeks were spent negotiating between the health system, Dr. Adlaka, and his attorneys. Once again, as negotiations led to a stalemate, I, along with the Chancery Clerk, Josh, County Administrator, Brian, met at Dr. Adlaka's office. We've been talking off and on for well over a year on this thing. It's not like we've not been involved. We explained that partnering with the health system would allow Jackson County to be his partner. Dr. Adlaka's project would need significant infrastructure, and we would try to work with him to do as much as we could legally, including the possibility of having them sign over right-of-way so that we could construct large amounts of infrastructure, which would eliminate or at least reduce a lot of the TIF bonds. I'd like to reiterate here that this would have been a major incentive where Goshen wins, the health system wins, and therefore the taxpayers of the county win. However, Dr. Adlaka responded that he would discuss this proposal with his partners, but opined that it might be just too late for us to work something out because he already had other commitments. After that, Dr. Adlaka starts sending out those threatening text messages that we've heard a little bit about how he would hurt Singing River Health System if the health system challenged the con. Can we put up an exhibit? This is a text message from Dr. Adlaka to me on April the 14th, 2024. You probably can't read it. What it says is, here is my strategy from us if the hospital contest our CON. All the cardiologists will break off all relations with the Singing River Health System employed cardiologists, causing them some strain. All pacemakers, AICD heart caths that could be scheduled at Merit will go there. All structural cases will be done at Memorial. We have physicians from Keesler and Gulfport Memorial helping us out. Some of the cardiologists will go in private partnerships with Memorial, some of the employed cardiologists. The offices will be used to house other subspecialties to create referrals to us. And that, if that ain't bullying, I don't know what is. The county requested the city of Goshen City Council to meet with Jackson County in a public meeting. And let's discuss the consequences of the Goshen ASC and medical complex. That happens to be an email from me to the mayor of Goshen, copied to the city manager and all of the councilmen. It was dated May the 3rd, 2024. That was almost a week before our next meeting, and then the following day, the Goshen City Council meeting that they voted on their TIF. In the email, I'm not going to read it all, I invited Casey and everyone to come. Let's talk about it, to discuss several issues regarding the TIF. The county was never invited to a sit-down to discuss participating in this TIF, so I have some concerns that, to my knowledge, have not been addressed. And then, boom, 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 4 or 5 issues. We invited the Goshen Council to come to that meeting, and they did not come. We went to their meeting the next day and were allowed 3 minutes apiece, and I'll stop there. No. I'm sorry, I didn't mean I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop there reading that email. even after being blasted by my own Goshen City Council at the TIF public hearing, I did not give up on Legacy Park. Due to the CON being contested at that point, I believe there was still an opportunity to make this project work. Dr. Idlaka was willing to offer 39.5%. See, he has changed. He's negotiating 39.5% to the health system. But in return, they wanted $3 million in right-of-way improvements, $1.7 million in TIF proceeds, and this was back in May of 2024. Plus, they would still be leasing other medical space to competition of Singing River Health System. By this point, Singing River Health System had already commenced its plans to compete with Dr. Idlaka, and it wasn't acceptable to the, from the perspective of the Singing River Health System. Now, here's one of the most serious reasons we're here tonight. Okay, that's C. This is a text message, January the 27th this year, from Dr. Idlaka. I want a partnership and have no interest in involving attorneys and the Attorney General office and starting a public relations war and backing candidates who will support us. So he strongly stated there, and he didn't want to have a PR war, but he started one. And I want a partnership and have no interest in involving attorneys and the AG and starting a PR war and backing candidates who will support us. He did start a PR war, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why we're gathered here tonight. Within a few weeks of this PR war threat, the doctors began. Oh, I'm sorry. Some of the people began inundating social media with misinformation simply because we would not agree to give them future taxpayer funds. Again, in my 21 plus years of public service, I've never been threatened if I did not support a project. That may be the way these guys do business, backing candidates who will support us, but that is not how Jackson County, Mississippi handles business. We don't do it that way. It's commonly being said that the surgery center and the medical center are about to be constructed. That came up earlier. The attorney told us about the AG opinion. Basically, they're going to get in real trouble if they proceed with construction on the surgery center. Exhibit E, Dr. Tassan is implying the health system will potentially go bankrupt due to the increase in pension payments this year. Okay. This is a Facebook post from Adiz Tassan. He wrote it. The county is in a difficult position right now, given that in roughly 2 years, the county-owned hospital will start owing a significant amount of money back to the pension fund bailout, the bailout fund, which has potential to bankrupt the entire hospital system. Dr. Tazan says within a couple of years, Singing River Health System will be bankrupt. Let me see, we have some Mr. Eldridge, question. What was the amount of the pension payment due FY '25?
$5.7 million.
Okay. How much is due in FY '26 and every year after until payments are complete?
$4.5 million.
So the payments are actually going to go down.
Yes, sir.
Josh, how many days cash on hand, which is a very common measure of fiscal strength in a health system, how much days cash on hand did the health system end up with last fiscal year?
126 days.
126 days. I think I'm safe in saying the hospital system is probably in the strongest position it's ever been in. Do you agree?
Well, at the end of fiscal year '24 is 126 days. Currently, they're sitting over 140 days. So they are actually the strongest I can never find record of.
Okay, again, Reed has the potential to bankrupt the entire hospital system. No, we're not stirring it up. Ms. Julian Strahan, would you please approach the microphone? What is your position at Singing River Health System?
I am the hospital administrator of the Pascagoula campus, and I oversee our 53 ambulatory clinics, and I'm a born and raised citizen of Jackson County, and I'm not going to tell you how many years.
Okay, thank you. Question. When you have
Get a
current,
little closer to the mic if you would, please.
when you have current physicians on social media claiming that our health system could go into bankruptcy, how does that affect the health system?
An opportunity cost is the potential benefit that is sacrificed when one option is chosen over another. Because this particular individual has chosen the option to leave behind a digital footprint of untrue statements, Singing River will be faced with financial implications for years to come from a recruiting perspective. Any physician who is interested in relocating to our community will surely scour social media to gain insight, do their research, and this is what they will come across on social media about Singing River. In turn, we will lose interest from highly skilled potential candidates, or we will be forced to pay a higher premium salary just to recruit them here.
Okay, thank you so much.
Let me slow that. So basically, you're saying when, because that was quick. So basically, you're saying when you're trying to recruit a doctor, especially somebody like a cardiologist, or, especially people, millennials and stuff, they do a Facebook search. They're going to see, hey, what's going on at Singing River?
They'll
Correct?
keyword search anything from Singing River Health System, SRHS, and whenever you search on social media, anything pertaining to that, since we've officially been linked because of his post, those candidates will see that.
Okay,
And
so
if-
what you're saying is, when
So-
you got a current cardiologist saying you're going to go bankrupt, that may somebody might second guess coming here and moving their family here, when you got current doctors, physicians sitting there saying, hey, this place is going to go bankrupt in 2 years.
So I've been a healthcare provider for 15 years, and if I was looking to relocate into an area and this is what I came across, I would immediately go to the very next destination. I would skip the drama, especially if a current provider had that to say about the system. They do cases in and take care of their patients in.
And because of, and I think the question was earlier, how are we spending hundreds of thousands of dollars? Basically because of those threats, right? Y'all had to go, hey, get ready to compete. What's that push to what you're having to pay your current physician, to be able to compete, because you just don't have a pool of cardiologists to go pull from.
We're at the mercy of the cardiologists that we have employed right now, and bringing others in, it does cost significantly more.
So I think that kind of asks the question, how are we spending more money? Because instead of using the private physicians in the community, when these guys are threatening you have to say, hey, we have to compete, which makes you start buying premium for your physicians.
We haven't even begun to account for the amount of money it's cost this administration to sit back and deal with this instead of taking care of patients.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Heath Thompson, will you please introduce yourself?
Yes, Heath Thompson, the current hospital administrator for Ocean Springs Hospital, Jackson County resident for the past 26 years.
Okay. If you were going to build an outpatient surgery center for cardiac patient care, would you build it next to one of the hospitals or in the center of the county where in an emergency you would have to get through all the traffic on Highway 90 to get help for the patient?
In the best interest of patient safety, I would want it as close to the hospital as possible. Ideally, even on campus. I want to have rapid access for the patient to the emergency room and to the CT surgery team in the event there's a complication that needs immediate attention, which could be life-saving.
So that means there would be an ambulance to be called or already there that would have to take the patient and move them to a real hospital.
Right, and obviously if you're right next door to the hospital, that decreases that time versus being miles away from the hospital.
Which could save lives.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Also, would you not want your cardiologist as close as possible, rather than in the middle of the county, to save a patient's life rather than miles down the road?
Ideally, having them there in the hospital, which they commonly are, is going to be better, but also we have the in-house trauma team and cardiac team that can go ahead and take that patient very soon versus if the cardiologist is not there. My point is we also have all the other trained physicians to help while we wait on the cardiologist. But generally, to answer your question, yes, if you're in the hospital, you're going to have that response time quicker.
Correct. Thank you, sir.
So what about a transfer agreement? Will they have a transfer agreement with an ambulance? Will they take those to, I mean, according to the CON, where are they going to take these patients from the surgery center?
Okay, I can say that Singing River Health System, we do not have a transfer agreement for the future Gaucher Cardiac ASC. My understanding is that they have listed Memorial Hospital Gulfport as the CT surgery backup plan. And so that would be something you would need in the case of a complication that needs intervention by a CT surgeon.
How many miles and how much time would it take to go to Memorial?
I would think once, there's still minutes that are going to pass before the ambulance would get to the ASC in Gaucher, and then from that time, I would think with the clock ticking, it would be 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the traffic, especially where Memorial is located.
So will this be an ASC in the county, center of the county, away from the hospitals, with no transfer agreement? They don't look as much about patient care as maybe that's being put out there.
Yeah, in my opinion, if you're putting the patient best interest at the forefront, then that would be the driving decision on the location of where you would put the ASC. So that's what I think is important.
But Pascagoula transfers their heart emergencies to Ocean Springs if something happens to the cath lab, correct?
If, please, you can come up later if you wish, but let's.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, but he's going to have to answer that, but please.
Sure.
Do that.
Yeah. So we have a CT surgeon covering both hospitals, Ocean Springs, Pascagoula. And we also, an advantage of if there is a case at Pascagoula and the CT surgeon is at Ocean Springs and we have to transfer, we have the emergency room trained staff there in the same building that can give immediate care to that patient to keep them stable, to get them to, and you know, a drive from Pascagoula to Ocean Springs with the ambulances, they're practically parked outside the hospital throughout the day. I could see them making that in 15 to 20 minutes once they load the patient.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, to the public, I am now down to my last item I wanted to cover, and then I will be through. Continually stated on social media that Jackson County and I do not want to assist in economic growth in Goshen. That frustrates me very much, and I'd like to give you a couple of examples. Currently, all citizens in Jackson County pay almost $9.4 million a year. That's about 10% of the taxes, ad valorem taxes that we receive. That goes to the Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College right in the middle, the heart of Goshen. If anyone doesn't think the Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College is not an economic driver for Goshen and the whole county, come on, come see us and let's talk someday. Baco Park, the city renovated that several years ago. We donated half $500,000 to that project. We provided $700,000 financial assistance on the sound theater. That came up a couple of minutes ago. Totally elective. We didn't have to do that. The county provides about $150,000 annually to assist in Goshen's recreation activities. The county has spent millions on building and maintaining the Goshen soccer complex right there in the in Goshen. The county has spent millions at the county animal shelter located in Goshen, Mississippi. The county maintains the court system, youth court, chancery court, circuit court, and county court that are used by Goshen and all the cities. We strongly subsidize the district attorney's office, public defender's office, both of which support Goshen. The county is spending millions on improving our mental health system that is available in Goshen. We're going to have some good news on that pretty quickly, another couple of months. The county and/or state has done almost all road paving and bridge projects in Goshen. Go look at that $10 million Graveline Road Bridge. We didn't fund it, but we took the lead in doing it. The county is providing almost $1.3 million for ARPA funds in Goshen to help with their infrastructure. The county assessor, he assesses, the county tax collector collects taxes for Goshen, handles land redemptions for Goshen. We house Goshen's prisoners in the county jail. All of this is done through agreements with Goshen, and it saves, I would venture, well over $1 million a year for us doing these functions for Goshen. We support Jackson George County Library System. We have a very nice library in Goshen. The county has completed $3.5 million in dredging projects over the last couple of years, and we're looking at least another $3.2 million that's already in the permitting process in Goshen. And I emphasize again, there's no law that says we got to do dredging. We do it for the citizens, and we're doing that for the whole county. And as I just said, about close to $7 million on the bayous in Goshen. So, Dr. Tazan, please do not say that I or Jackson County do not support or want what is best for Goshen. You know, we are part of Goshen. We are the true partner of Goshen, not some developers like you that, you know, we don't even know what your project will look like from one day to the next. And I thank y'all very much.
Y'all ready to move ahead with the public comments? Okay. We'll move ahead with the public comments now, and first up, I have Miss Judith Pebbles.
Well, good evening, everybody. told you before, every time I come up here to speak, I feel like I'm in a 12-step program. My name's Judith Batalo-Peebles. I'm a traumatic brain injury survivor since 2003. I live in the city limits of Ocean Springs. First of all, if no one else will do it, I want to apologize to each and every one of you. I have never heard such language used with our Board of Supervisors. It is appalling. It's so disrespectful. I don't even know how to address it, so I'm not. I'm just going to say, I'm sorry to each and every one of you. There are 5 cath labs, right, Ken,
Yes.
in Jackson County?
Yes,
And they're at the hospital, correct?
yes,
And they're in hospital settings, right?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. I can say I would never allow any of my family members to have a heart cath procedure in an outlying cath lab that is multiple miles away from a hospital. If there's a complication, if there's an artery that needs to be addressed, they're right there in the hospital, not at a cath lab outline that has to be brought back, which is many miles away both ways. And why would I say this? Every minute counts for that person's life to be saved. I actually was part of this with my father when he had wasn't a heart issue, he had a brain bleed. We went to Ocean Springs. We have 1 hour to administrate medicine to a person that has a traumatic brain injury, or else the deficits become permanent. Through Ocean Springs, Lee Bond at the time, and Heath Thompson managed to get my father to Memorial Hospital, where the only neurosurgeon was, in 45 minutes. I can't tell you how grateful I was. And my best friend was driving my car for me because I was shaking so bad. But I can tell you, following your father, who is a patient, in an ambulance with lights on, going from Ocean Springs to Gulfport, trying to keep up with them, is the most horrible thing that a child or a parent of a child could be doing, because you know you're trying to beat the clock. I can't see how anyone would want their family to be placed in a situation like that. Now, I want to ask y'all, whoever can answer. I sat here and I watched when the Board of Trustees made the recommendation to sell the hospitals. Mr. Ken, you were livid at that day. You just could not believe that they popped that on you without any notice. There was talk about what happened if the hospital went into bankruptcy because of the COVID and all the stuff that was going on at that time. And it was brought up that the millage that the taxpayers used to pay, the millage was suspended in 1992 and has not to this date been reinstated. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So with having an outlying cath lab, there would be money lost at both hospitals, correct? As far as the volume of patients being in, they would be being diverted. So if the hospital was to lose $1, $2, or $3 million in revenue, what would happen to the hospitals? Who would make up for that money? Would we go into bankruptcy?
I don't think it would be an immediate thing. I mean, you're talking, like I said, the health system's very healthy right now.
right now.
So, but you have to look, what all that was part of when we were trying to negotiate the TIF, right? Even if we could work out the little portion on the surgery center, right? Well, you're still building a medical park. What about the rest of the buildings? If you're leasing all those buildings to surgical or to specialties, and you start pulling all the, profitable service lines, at that point, that's where you really start jeopardizing overall health of the type of service that the health system could provide to the community. And at that point, you start talking about indigent care and then you start talking about, okay, well, we got bonds to pay. At that point, yes, I don't want to say, yeah, if they build this tomorrow, you're gonna have an immediate tax increase or immediately shut down the hospital. But
Oh, I
it's just-
understand that. I
okay.
understand that. But what I'm saying, in the future of the hospital, it would take its toll on the hospital to try and make up for the funds that were lost.
It very potentially, yes.
Okay. And what I have said, and I have posted on Facebook, is I don't think that the general public knows what I can't remember who said it now, that the residents own these hospitals. Each and every one of us have a vested interest in these hospitals continuing on and being able to function. So any amount of money is lost money. Josh, if it had to be, would the millage be reinstated? And that would be from the residents. We would be paying that. So I can't see how this is a good idea to take from the hospitals. And last but not least, I know each one of you has helped someone on the outside. One of the residents of Jackson County, someone reached out to you, needed help, and y'all helped them. Well, I have to tell you, just about a little over a year ago, I was laying on my bathroom floor gasping for air. And just so happened, Mr. Bosarge found out about it. And he walked out of whatever he was doing, and he came rushing to my house to help me. And I'm here today because of Randy Bosarge. And I have one more thing. There was a post that was done. It had Mayor Holloway's picture, it had Randy's picture, and it had Ricky Altamont's picture on it. And it said, "Got caught trying to silence the voice of Jackson County." Randy, what did you get caught doing? You were on film. You were speaking out loud to the general public. You said that you wanted them to come and talk up here, just like we're doing right now. And where is that breaking the law when you tell somebody that? I understand everybody is fed up with Facebook and social media right now, but it's not a crime, because if it was, those posts would have never made it up there with all the misinformation that was there.
True.
I want to tell each and every one of you, I appreciate you, and I thank you for what you do for the residents of Jackson County. And please don't let our hospitals be stripped of the funds they need.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Tommy Broadnax, I believe you're up next.
I don't know what happened to that fellow there, but it's a good thing I wasn't sitting in your seat, because that man right there, that sheriff, he'd have put him outside. The gentleman, if this is not a public hearing, I don't know what is. But from what I've learned about this system, I got a letter I presented to y'all I'd like to read into the record. About the Legacy Park Memorial Tax Financing hearing. Having served 22 years of public service, 4 years on Jackson County Board of Education, and 18 years as a member of this board, I am very familiar with infrastructure costs. However, if I were voting on this funding request, I would oppose this project. Memorial Hospital, if Memorial Hospital can afford to purchase Merit Health System of Biloxi, then they should be able to fund this project also. They shouldn't be dependent on any tax increment financing. Thanks for your public service.
Thank you, Mr. Broadnax. We appreciate you. Next up, Miss Debbie Robinson.
Hello.
I'm not a very good speaker, so I typed some things out.
You'll do fine.
Okay. I'm a resident of Goshen and have been for the last 40-plus years. I have several concerns I'd like to voice to the board tonight. The board has made the request by Legacy Park for a county TIF agreement for its commercial development into a health system issue. It is not. This is for the potential commercial economic development which will benefit Ocean Springs School District, the City of Goshen, and Jackson County. I, as a citizen, envision Highway 57 becoming like Cedar Lake Road, where there are multiple medical offices, clinics, Singing River Hospital has one there, shopping, banking, and restaurants. It ties into Pops Ferry Road, a major thoroughfare, much like 57 ties into Highway 90. In my opinion, the board is doing more harm than good in withholding TIF funding for this project, and I'm talking about just the commercial development. The mere presence of a medical center that is not owned, managed, controlled, or operated by Singing River Hospital should not be a concern when it regards potential economic commercial development. There was a comment on Facebook about this development being for the cardiologist's personal gain. And oh my goodness, there will be a street named after one of the developers, Dr. Tassan. Has anyone heard of Sanguani Boulevard in Devireville? That little shopping center was developed by Dr. Bharat Sanguani, another cardiologist, and is known as the Promenade. The board, with tax dollars, expanded Cook Road for the sole purpose to connect into the Promenade. Jackson County now has a TIF agreement with the Bass Pro Shop for a commercial development on Cook Road. Interestingly, this new development ties into the Promenade and Sanguani Boulevard, Dr. Sanguani Boulevard. Dr. Sanguani owned the land, saw an opportunity for economic development, developed it, and years later, he and his partners personally benefited from it. Aren't we all glad that he had that vision and saw that opportunity, because now we are getting a Bass Pro Shop with the $35 million TIF agreement by our board. Do all of Jackson County TIF agreements contain a clause that there should be no competing health care on site? I don't know. If this legacy park development was so vital to the financial well-being of Singing River Health System, and in turn Jackson County taxpayers, then why didn't you, the board, simply tell the hospital they must partner with the cardiologist developers? Mr. Taylor, I don't know, okay. You were doing Facebook quotes. You asked this same question in a different way about a year ago in May of 2024 on your Facebook. And I quote, "It's a shame the city of Goshen is part of this TIF favoring merit with the full knowledge of the potential outcome. If the council would simply tell the cardiologist developers they must partner with Singing River Hospital, the whole county benefits." Another quote from your Facebook page about a week ago, "If the city of Goshen had done due diligence back then and talked with Singing River Hospital in the county, maybe they could have understand what consequences were ahead." County was prepared to be a major investor in the medical complex. And another comment by you, recent comment. In this case, I believe a majority of the board believes protecting our county-owned hospital trumps support for helping fund a project that actually diverts money away from our health system. If that were different, I guarantee we would all be in. Again, the TIF request is for commercial development. How does eating at a restaurant, shopping at stores, partaking in some entertainment divert money away from our health system? Singing River Hospital is holding hostage economic development in the county, all because Singing River Hospital did not win in controlling these developers. If this was so important to the financial well-being of Jackson County, why did you, the board, allow the administration to let this opportunity slip away? And now, only recently, say, oh yeah, by the way, we'll partner 50-50 now. You let the opportunity slip away because of bad decisions by the administration wanting complete control. I am frankly tired of hearing the sky is falling at Singing River Hospital System. Why on earth are my county tax dollars supporting hospitals and clinics in Harrison County? What happens if those ventures fail? Yep, Jackson County taxpayers are on the hook for that. The sky is falling because of competition. Y'all said that earlier today, or tonight. Well, Singing River Hospital is in Harrison County and competing with at least 2 hospital systems and multiple clinics over there. And I guess Singing River Hospital is holding its own over there. You said that we're on good footing. If not, the board needs to demand the administration sell it so the burden will not be on Jackson County taxpayers to support that endeavor. Memorial is a community-based health system just like Singing River Hospital. Like Mr. Taylor said, we are providing health care to all citizens. Next, the sky is falling because this medical center would take away indigent care. Memorial Hospital is a community hospital just like Singing River Hospital. That is not an issue. Next, the sky is falling. All Jackson County taxes are going to increase because of this development. Singing River Hospital does not pay ad valorem taxes on the properties it owns. But this development will pay ad valorem taxes on the increased value of the property. I'd rather have $1 million than $58. Sales tax is not charged on health care services, but sales tax is charged on retail and commercial sales. Think about that. Goshen, Ocean Springs School District, and the county gain nothing if there is no development. Next, the sky is falling because countless people will be out of a job. Really, massive layoffs due to Memorial building a cardiovascular center in Jackson County. Was Singing River Hospital worried about potential massive layoffs of healthcare providers in Harrison County when it moved into that area? And what about the jobs that will be generated with this development? I think we heard about the jobs. And most recently, the sky has fallen because of the mental health and emergency room crisis in our county. Really, it was said the funds from the cardiovascular center subsidize mental health care and emergency room care. Shouldn't all specialties at Singing River Hospital do that? Now, I will agree some of the words used by the parties were offending. But revenge is not the reason to withhold TIF funding for a commercial retail development. It seems to me that we, the taxpayers, and you, the board, work for the administration of Singing River Hospital instead of the other way around. When you say jump, when they say jump, you say how high. What about the hospital administration working for us and taking into consideration what is best for the communities as a whole than their own interest? I'm also concerned that the board not approving this TIF request sets a deterrent for future developers to invest in our cities and in recruiting physicians, healthcare providers to come to our cities and set up practices. I find that, I'm going to tell you the truth, I think both parties are at fault with that. If I was a physician and seeing all this, I mean, the county's not going to support me having my own office. They're not going to support me building my own little medical center. But at the same thing, the words that were said, I wouldn't want to come in here either. It appears Singing River Hospital has set out the welcome mat, but only if they control. The scare tactics both ways has got to stop. You have to think about us, the citizens, and what is best for the community. This does nothing to create economic development, but deaders it. Stop holding economic development hostage. Stop holding economic development and progress in Goshen hostage for the benefit of one entity. Thank you.
Amen.
Next, I have Miss Stacy Ladner. Stacy Ladner? Okay.
Good afternoon. Stacy Ladner, 1107 Hickory Hills Drive in Goshen, Mississippi. I've heard a lot of information from the board. I appreciate y'all doing this and putting out an open forum because, as you had mentioned before, this is typically business conducted behind closed doors. I do think that the board and the developers need to go back to the basics and take it behind the closed doors and come to the negotiation on what they are presenting for now. That's going to be the TIF apart from the medical. That they're saying is off the table now, and they need to present just the economic development from the retail, commercial, and the hotel. They need to properly request that be considered before the board, and the board needs to consider that request apart from all of the social media. I am a lifetime Jackson County resident for 4+ decades. I'll go ahead and say that. And now a citizen of Goshen for the past 5 years. I'm also a business owner, trying to bring business and economic development into Goshen and Jackson County as well. And as mentioned before, you read all of this. It is very hard for me to go and convince people to move to our state whenever you can see the fighting. I was at a business council meeting last week where the executive director of the Mississippi Development Authority spoke. And he spoke about all of his efforts and the governor's efforts to go and attract businesses here. When he addressed the 3 coastal counties, multiple times he said, we are in our own way because of the fighting. And that gets seen. And they have gone to social media. People are going to say things to have reactions, but let's all be the grown-ups, the bigger people who care about the economic development, and take it to where it needs to go. Get behind the closed doors, have the conversation, see if you can come to an agreement, have the presentation put before you. What is the plan? Where is the benefit to all residents of Jackson County? And consider that new plan that they're going to present based on the merit and the facts. Take the medical portion out of it, if that is what they're going to present to you, and focus on the hotels and the retail and the other items that are going to be brought into that corridor, and help me be able to attract individuals. Help me, as a business owner, be able to build a facility down here, have the hotel infrastructure, to bring in the conferences, to pour more money and economic development into this area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Ms. Kay Jamison.
Good evening. Kay Jamison, 4018 Hillendale Drive, Goshen. Been a resident of Goshen for 45 years. I also would like to apologize on behalf of the Legacy Park on Facebook because a lot of the stuff was uncalled for. But it was it's a very passionate project, and a lot of people that posted on there with them said a lot of things they probably shouldn't have to, but it's hard to hold it back when you're so passionate about something. I am definitely for economic development in Goshen. We need it really bad, and I feel like this project is worthy of being brought in front of you for the approval of a TIF. Even if y'all decide that it's not worthy, I believe it's worth coming before you and giving it a chance and talk to the developers one-on-one, because I think it's the kickoff of development in Goshen. And we've got to do something. It's time for Goshen to develop. Pascagoula's had an opportunity to develop. Now we've got, western Jackson County starting to develop. Moss Point's had a chance to develop. Goshen needs their chance. And I would appreciate you adding it to your agenda and at least having the discussion with the team, the doctors. Thank you for your time.
Can I say one thing? It's kind of step outside my lane, and it's not directed to you, but the comments. I had the opportunity to read. I have a copy of a year's worth of text between Ken Taylor and Dr. Alaka, and I just want everybody to know that Ken Taylor, for a year, was begging to try to make a deal. Now, everybody can have their own opinion about where it went off the rails, right? But Ken got unfairly just hammered on social media when he was fighting for good things for Goshen. And I understand, I appreciate your comment and Debbie's and the other comment, but I don't think people realize how much Ken, over and over and over for a year, said, please, let's make a deal. Please, let's make a deal. And for a lot of different reasons, maybe Ken and Josh and Brian maybe could speak to it more, but that man went to bat for Goshen, trying to make it work. Really, I mean, negotiations just never went anywhere.
If I was looking for a partner, if I owned the business and I was looking for a partner, and somebody was willing to wanted 51% versus 40%, I would choose the 40% also. And that's what my understanding is. Singing River Hospital System wanted 51% of the business, and Memorial wants 40%.
They were prepared to negotiate further.
Yeah, right. I mean, everybody says 51%, but I want everybody to understand, it's just like buying a car. I mean, when you go to a dealer to buy a car and he says the price is $30,000, you don't say, thank you, here's my check. You negotiate with them. There were no negotiations. 51% was the number that was.
Wasn't the offer to Singing River for I think it's 39.5%. Wasn't that offer there and Singing River refused?
I think that took an extra $3 million of investment from the county to get that. There's a pretty large number attached to that.
Yeah, he went up, but it was related to the 3 million plus the TIF on top of that, right? So it's got to make economical sense, for the county and the health system to do it. And these guys are not saying don't do your project. They can, I mean, like many people state, Jackson County owns a hospital in Harris County. We compete in Harrison County. They compete over here, but they don't pay for ours and we don't pay for theirs, right? And they're just like, well, we're not talking about medical anymore. Well, it's all connected, right? It's one project. It used the same infrastructure, so it's hard to say it's completely separate unless you went back to the drawing board, and maybe that's what some people say.
Well,
and try to create new TIF districts, break everything apart. And I don't know if it makes financial sense for the doctors to do that, right? So there's just a ton of negotiations, and everybody just says, oh, they didn't want it, they didn't want it. No, I mean, like Jimmy said, and there's text messages for a year. Hey, how do we make it work? How do we make the doctors move, the health system move? I mean, people tried to work together But they just said the better deal for us is with Memorial, and that's fine, you know? I mean, let's compete. I mean,
Well, I think Goshen deserves to at least have y'all put it on your agenda and hear them out. And I just wanted to say one more thing. I've had 13 surgeries. None of them have been cardiac, and a majority have been done at Singing River Hospital System. So Singing River Hospital System is still going to get business even with this cardiac service. Right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate you.
Ms. Jameson, you need to toot your horn and tell people you're running for office.
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Iman, you're up. And I hope I got that right. I don't.
Good evening. My name is Eamon Mahedin. I live at 1219 Monticello Boulevard. I'm frequently before this board. Just a little background for the audience. I'm actually taking this board to the Mississippi Supreme Court over a zoning dispute. But that being said, we're not necessarily always adversarial. Even though we dispute, we still get along quite well in private. But I want to trace the history back to what is perceived ethical integrity violations by the board. And I've talked to some of the supervisors about this. You know, I feel like in 2023 in December, when the board chose to allow 2 or 3 people at the expense of thousands of people to profit, that is what now has set the board up to questions of violations of ethical integrity. And yet, the board's decision is still respectable. You know, the point is still debatable about whether, you know, an RV park development in Gulf Park Estates is good or bad. But the perceived notion was that the board sold out the people for some developers. Yet now, tonight, we see what appears to be hypocrisy, where the board does say here, and I say this respectfully, that they will not choose the whole system-wide people for 2 or 3 developers. So this is where the public sees a disjoint. They say on one hand, the board is, once again, I say this respectfully, perceived to favor some group of people, and then on the other hand, the board does not favor other groups of people. So the public is now asking, where's the balance between this? You know, in the end, all we want is a good Jackson County. Is that not what we want? We want it to be fair and equitable, transparent for everybody. But now it seems like there's all this contentious fighting, all these different factions fighting. So in the end, like I've mentioned this to Randy, you know, the supervisor. I always told him that the decisions that the board makes now can come back and in the future boomerang against the board when there's a lack of trust, when there's perceived corruption, perceived mafia. This always comes back. They've done studies at the Warren School of Business that when the government is perceived to be corrupt, how it stifles economic development. I'm not saying that this board is corrupt. I'm saying this board follows the law. You know, and when there's disputes in the law, we just take it up and appeal it to the courts. That's our system in this country, and it's a respectable and worthy system. You know, but that being said, when there's a perception that, you know, that there are issues, in the end, it hurts everybody. It hurts the economic development. The reason why Mississippi is not the same as South Carolina, North Carolina, or other similar states is because Mississippi has always had these issues of problematic legislatures, problematic infighting, and these issues themselves are what stifle economic development. For instance, Jackson, Mississippi, and Charleston, South Carolina, approximately 50 years ago, used to be the same level at economic development. Now, Charleston, South Carolina was able to get its community working together, its politicians working together, and it became one of the gems of the South. Yet Jackson, Mississippi could never do that. It was constant bitter infighting, constant attacking. You know, no one was able to come to the table and negotiate. No one was seeing, well, what side has more leverage? How do we reach a deal? But in the end, it came down to fundamentally trust issues. There can't be a negotiation between businesses and the board if there's perceived trust issues, period. Now, if some group of developers is accusing the board, well, they should be able to back up that accusation. But that being said, this same board has ruled in an adversarial way against its own constituents, and that is what I feel like has formulated some of this, and is somewhat of the basis of a trust issue. That being said, I feel like now that the air has been clear, that it's you know, there's always times for like new beginnings, you know. So I encourage the board to work closely with the community, because in the end, we want to build a track record that the board is fair and equitable to all, and that's how we build economic development in Mississippi. Thank you very much.
Comment, if I can, because before I was here, and I think Josh can explain this in more detail, this board got beat up years ago when the pension plan debacle happened.
Yes, sir.
This board didn't have enough oversight of the hospital. And again, you come before the board again a lot. We have a good relationship with you. But this board gets beat up years ago because it didn't have enough oversight of the hospital. Now they're trying to have oversight of the hospital and make sure that it makes the right decisions, and they get beat up again. I'm not sure, you know, this perceived ethical issues, I'm not sure. I legally keep them out of trouble, make sure they don't have ethical issues, but I'm not sure what these gentlemen are supposed to do. Either have oversight, make sure that the hospital is protected, or don't have oversight, and then you have a pension debacle. I don't understand which way these guys are supposed to go. Josh, you were here at the time. Brian?
Yeah, I think you covered it, Jimmy. I mean, basically, you know, these guys got beat to death for not having proper oversight. You know, they need to be more involved in the hospital, you know, make sure they don't make decisions that's going to help the citizens. So now that's exactly what they're doing, right? And have been doing. And I think you can see it at the changes at the health system in the last 10 years, the financial success, you know, and, you know, the services they provide. And they say, hey, there's a warning sign, guys. There's no guarantees on any of this stuff, but it's a lot of concerns. And these TIFs, right, you've never received a TIF for any of your stuff. They're not just entitlements, right? You have to prove that it's in the best interest. And the biggest thing was, hey, does it raise a red flag for a future tax increase? You know, that's what really, hey, said, hold up, guys. You know, are we really jeopardizing our health system?
I mean, I think every point here tonight is debatable, but we need to prove it by dollars and cents evidence. Yeah. So we need to, this is a very complex decision. You know, how does cardiology, which is the golden goose of the hospital, which, you know, allows the hospital to subsidize and make up for where they lose in other things, you know, how does now cardiology, you know, if that is siphoned away to a private venture, how does that affect? With that being said, in United States law, you know, in the history of this country, we've always had this idea of, like, you know, monopolies. You know, is Singing River a de facto, someone a de facto monopoly in the county when monopolies exist? Let's say you only have AT&T as your phone service. If AT&T is your only phone service, they have a reduced quality, you know, their prices are higher. So in the end, the consumer, in some ways, the paying consumer, I should say, not the indigent or not the one who doesn't pay anything because they're addicted to drugs or they just come in, but the paying consumer, by having more competition, actually gets a higher quality of care. So now we have to justify, so do we want Jackson County citizens to have less wait time, possibly higher, better quality of care, possibly better treatment options?
For some citizens, but maybe other citizens not.
See, there you go. So now it's a trade-off. It ends up being a trade-off.
And that I can show you, that's all been weighed. I mean, the numbers, we had the exact numbers for the exact cardiologists and compared, hey, if they took this numbers of cases, this is what it would cost us. Hey, that's why we negotiated, right? Otherwise, we would have just said, hey, go do it, you know? But we tried to make the project work, but it just never could get feasible, right?
Forcing the hospital to take a bad deal, right?
Sure,
right.
No, I agree.
Yeah, and I mean, even I know you're very involved, and I don't even know close to the zoning laws and the Supreme Court details and all that. But, you know, you said that, you know, hey, I know the citizens wanted. I think the board felt like some did. I don't know. And also, you got to look at the legal side of that. But on one hand, you're saying the board should have shut that project down, right? Shouldn't have allowed it. Should have protected us. On the other hand, you're saying you got to let this project go forward, push it forward. So you can argue, but, you know,
So, I mean, every point becomes debatable, but, you know, in the end, I think a good gauge is what is the public's, the first good gauge before a board is to see, like, what does the public say here? So, and we're seeing mixed sides. They're both good points here.
Right.
They're
we appreciate your points. That's what the purpose tonight is.
That's what
all the public information. Let's answer the questions. Let's make sure, because, I mean, nobody's perfect.
I feel like the majority of people are stirred up because it started with a Facebook allegation, and and then the respectable people here at Singing River says this has cost them now hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, if we don't get this in control, if we don't get these issues in control, this is costing money. This is gonna cost them money. It's gonna cost the taxpayers money, and just to have this escalating instead of competition, like these developers, they came across, they weren't willing to cooperate. That was their negotiation tactic. Well, they thought they had leverage against the board of supervisors being actively practicing physicians here. They thought we'll just buy this, but in the end, they didn't understand that the board does have significant sway in what happens in this county, and they thought we will just compete, but in the end they realized that negotiation tactic has now stalled progress, and it is truly set up an adversarial, it is escalated an adversarial position to some degree between the citizens of Gaucher in particular and the board. I mean, the citizens of Gaucher want to see their school districts higher. They want to see their quality of life better, and they're saying that this board, by denying this, is reducing their quality of life. They can perceive or understand, look, the hospital, all this stuff with the hospital, it doesn't affect their daily life. But when they see
it's complex.
It is complex.
And there's a lot that goes into it.
Sure.
Okay.
So, we had a disagreement with you. I mean, the board voted against your interest and you appealed the Supreme
Sure.
Court. Hey, look, if the Supreme Court rules in your favor, I'll shake your hand and say, congratulations, you won. But we're not sitting here, bad-mouthing each other, calling each other names.
I've never said a single thing against this board online.
It's okay. If you win, then the Supreme Court, you beat us, okay? But I look at it as having been around these guys for a lot, been involved in a lot of these meetings, a lot of these discussions, there's a difference of opinion. It doesn't mean that they don't want Gaucher to have its development. It's just a difference of opinion about whether or not to support a deal that we see all combined into one, supporting the medical side of it too. But these guys want Gaucher to succeed. They want the project to succeed. And I even asked earlier, if Gaucher did the $1 million in infrastructure, then the problem's solved. Now, maybe they don't want to do that, or you could go get another investor. I could name a dozen people today that would probably partner with them if this deal was going to work and invest $1 million. So it seems to be all being thrown on this board when there's other avenues to make it work, but this board's being beat up.
Like, I don't know the developers personally and the way they approach it. This is the first time I've seen the evidence. I don't know either of them. But what I saw was a very bad businessman. And, they're probably going to come after me and say, don't. They're probably trying to sue me right after this meeting. But, yeah. But what I saw was bad business tactics. Instead of cooperating with the board, it was trying to negotiate a deal. They were very, I would say selfish, because in the end, medicine is, you do have to provide this public good. You do take a Hippocratic oath, and it's a very people-oriented. It's not like buying property and doing that kind of thing. And it's a very different type of business where, you're dealing constantly with life and death, people's families, life-altering decisions. And I just felt like the tactic they took did not balance enough of the public good. So, I mean, what I saw was just bad businessmen. They should just stay in the hospital. They should stay out of business. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah. Now, that's all we have on our list. That's all we have on our list to speak. There's anyone else that just wants to come up that didn't get to sign the list?
Or any other questions by anybody? There's, I know people have a lot of questions. Some were shouted. Questions were shouted. I encourage anybody to come up and ask questions.
Yeah. Give us your name and address. Come on up to the microphone.
My name is Gary Chambliss. I live at 2709 Port-au-Prince Drive in Gaucher. I've been doing medical construction for 25 years. It sounds like the doctors, from listening to all this, have done a really crummy job of putting out some bad stuff. But the defense, and I asked the fellow back here that's representing them, if this is a hybrid cath lab, a lot of these questions, the hospitals goes away. A hybrid cath lab is the OR room with a cath lab in it. And if the procedure for the cath lab goes south, they're already in an OR, and they could just bust them open and do a complete heart transplant or a much deeper thing. So if they're doing a hybrid cath lab, a lot of these things about transporting, they go away. So,
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else?
Can I just ask one quick question?
Please.
Go ahead.
One of the supervisors was talking about the transport times between the center and Goshen, this proposed center, and whether the transport times to Ocean Springs and transport times to Pascagoula. If Sing River Hospital would have partnered with the doctors and they would have built the clinic right there in Goshen, would that have changed any of those transport times? I just wondered, because it would make such a big deal about the transport times. And number two, I don't know these doctors at all. If they walked in, if they were sitting beside me, I would not know who they are. I'm just approaching you as a concerned citizen of Goshen and Jackson County. Thank
Thank
you.
you, ma'am. All right.
Let me mention one more thing, if I can. It's something I've got to work through since this is an open meeting, no executive session, no closed doors. I had received a letter today, an anonymous letter at my house that dealt with Goche City Councilman Coolidge. And I've got, it's another complicating factor with this. And I haven't gone through all the steps, but Goche, City Council of Goche.
Mr. Coleman, if I can address that real quick, that is nothing but slander and misinformation.
This what now?
It's slander and misinformation.
No, it's not slander.
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay.
Because
So all
I
of the,
voted on 3 items on legacy development.
Okay.
April and May. I worked for MD Design Group. We signed a contract in August 12th.
Okay.
Of 2024. I have recused myself from anything and everything regarding legacy development since that time.
Okay.
So whoever sent you that letter is spreading lies and misinformation.
Thank you. So Goche has entered a contract with the developers. The developers entered a contract with Machado Patano. You work for Machado Patano. I'm not saying you've done anything wrong, so I'm not slandering you. I'm not saying anything. I'm saying it's an issue that I have to work through. There are certain things within the Ethics Commission that you can recuse yourself from. There are certain things that you cannot recuse yourself from. I do know that you cannot have a contract, a direct or indirect interest in a contract during your term of office or for 1 year thereafter. That is clear. There's no question about that. So the question is, do you as a city councilman for the city of Goche who contracted with the developers, who contracted with your employer, who pays you, is there a circle of money there? Maybe.
Absolutely not, because I have recused myself. This is not a public project.
You cannot recuse.
You receive financial gain, correct? I do not get.
You cannot recuse. All I'm saying is it's a complicating factor. We're not in executive session. It's an open session.
Holy thing right here. Come talk to me individually, rather than bring us up in open session, and we can work through these items.
Look, we're having a public discussion, nothing behind closed doors because of things that have been put out on Facebook. All I'm saying is the council for the board, I've got to work through that issue. Maybe you're perfectly fine. I'm not accusing you of anything. Most of the time you go to the Ethics Commission and get an okay for them to do that. All I'm saying is it's something that I need to work through. Somebody sent me a letter. All I've got to do is look into it and see how that may affect this board. It's an anonymous letter signed by a concerned citizen.
Well, I could have been handled a lot differently, because this is where you're proving where you're sitting at right now. So I think you are. No, sir, I'm not.
Okay.
Yes, he did.
Let's don't do this, folks. This doesn't help anybody. Oh,
Because he voted for it.
I'm sorry?
The company I worked for had no interest in it whatsoever until August 12th of 2024. We had no idea we were going to be tied to this development, and I have not put on anything thereafter. We had no idea we would be involved with it when the good plan was done on April 16th and voted on May 7th.
okay.
We did not get into a contract until April 12th. I have all the legal documents with me right now.
All right, something you got to work through, isn't it, Jimmy?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. All right.
I just wanted to ask a quick question. You commented about the building not even beginning to legally be built. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
I am not a certificate of need expert. There's two things. There is a statute, Mississippi statute 417201-2A. And it basically says no construction, renovation, or other capital expenditure that is the subject of the order shall be undertaken, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, the statute says you can't do any construction. But statutes are interpreted by either courts or by the Attorney General. The Attorney General just issues an opinion. That could be overturned by a court, but we follow Attorney General opinions as well. And the Attorney General opined in 2000 with regard to this particular statute. It says, in summary, it is the opinion of this office that while a certificate of need is on appeal, and this certificate of need is on appeal, Section 417191-2A prohibits construction, renovation, and any other expenditures over $2 million. But the statute does not prohibit and exempts from the stay purchase of medical equipment. You can purchase medical equipment, or you can offer the health services which were granted by the certificate of need. In other words, the procedures that were allowed by the CON can proceed even if there are incidental construction costs. So the way I read this is if there were a building there and they were going to perform these procedures there, they got the green light to perform the procedures, but now it's on appeal through the court system. And if they had to do some incidental construction on this building, then in that case, everything would be fine. But the very end of that sentence says, as long as those costs do not amount to a capital expenditure, i.e. do not exceed $2 million. So I think it's clear that if the cost of the building, the surgery center, the cardiac surgery center exceed $2 million, I don't think they can even pour a slab.
So is it a certificate of need on appeal?
Yes, it's on appeal.
Who's appealing it?
Hospital.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That answers.
Well, sure. I mean,
But now if the doctor.
here's a question, Debbie. Here's a question, Debbie, and you and I go back a long way. Do you compete or do you not compete?
Do you, if the,
Right?
if the hospital would have partnered with the doctors on this surgical center, they would be all for that certificate of need.
Why would we partner? Why would we make a bad deal?
What? But you guys tried to. You guys tried to partner with the developers on this Singing River Medical, on this medical center.
And the deal never made sense. Nobody's going to enter a deal. Nobody's going to enter a deal that doesn't make good business sense.
This comes to an agreement because they wanted more, we wanted more, they wanted $3 million. That's what I'm saying. Now you're all changing it up.
No, we're not.
No.
If the developers would have partnered with Singing River Hospital to build this medical center, there would be no problem with this certificate of need. Singing River Hospital would be opponent because they got their way.
Do you understand that this center brings nothing new? Right? There's cath labs in Ocean Springs. There's cath labs in Pascagoula. This center brings nothing new. If every specialty peeled money away from the hospital, where would you be hospitalized if you had to go?
I think we need to move.
Yeah.
There's too much to.
Let's move on. Can we move on?
Yeah, we're gonna have to move on.
Can we move on?
Yep. This is going nowhere. We're gonna have to move on.
Some people really consider the economic development for the city of Goshen.
We have.
That road right there is the next. So your restaurant is more important than Catholic? Retail development is.
Yes.
Yes.
That's all. All right, that's good.
All right, I think we've gotten to a point where we've got.
Yeah, we're not,
No
we're
more
not
out of
done.
turn talking.
That's enough, that's enough, that's enough. I'll ask the deputy to escort you out, that's enough. No, that's enough.
One speaker.
All right, folks.
I have a question. So talking about earlier about the cath lab transfer times, I'm employed by the cath lab. I work there every day and I work very closely with the doctors. So my question is, at Pascagoula, we do not have CV surgery there on hand. And we said something about having ambulances right outside. That's not always the case. We've had to transfer patients to Ocean Springs and them in emergency situations. And sometimes it takes an extra of 30 to 45 minutes. So with the ASC being built, it's 4 miles from Ocean Springs. It's 15 miles from Pascagoula to Ocean Springs. So I just wanted to clarify, because I feel like that was being used as a scare tactic for the ASC.
It's a lot further from 57 over to Gulfport.
But who's to say that the ambulance would skip Ocean Springs? If it's an emergent, they're going to stop at Ocean Springs Hospital to better that patient.
Isn't that where they have their transfer agreement with?
I'm not sure who they have their transfer
They
agreement
do.
with.
It's Memorial, Gulfport. Maybe they wouldn't skip Ocean Springs, but their transfer agreements with Memorial,
I
Gulfport.
don't see any of these doctors skipping a hospital to put a patient out.
It's not really up to the doctor.
No, it's not.
To the nearest hospital if it's an emergency. They will not take you to Memorial if it is an emergency. I've had them come to my house and have asked that we go to Memorial because that's where our doctors are. And the ambulance driver says we cannot do that. We have to go to the nearest hospital.
You're probably right.
I know I'm right. I'm experienced.
Yeah, I mean, I asked the question about the transfer agreement. I'm not a medical professional by no means, so.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
In response to that, I would just say that ASC, that future ASC, it's not inside a building that also has board certified emergency room physicians and surgeons and doctors all around. There's no emergency care available there that could rescue and stabilize that patient immediately while they're waiting on the ambulance. So that was the point I was trying to bring out from a patient safety situation, of having a cath lab that has no emergency room in it, no.
So if it's a hybrid cath lab, your thing goes away.
Well, not exactly. Out of our 5 cath labs, one is a hybrid. We have all the surgeons and the cath lab team in the building, so the only concern I see if that was a hybrid is you still don't have all those specialists in the building.
See, the hybrid and hybrid cath lab makes no difference whether it's a cath lab or a hybrid cath lab. They still have the same service there. It doesn't give them the ability to track that.
Yes, it does, in a hybrid, it isn't OR.
The cardiologist doesn't have the ability to track that.
Go on, buddy, yeah. Folks, I'm sure this could be argued back and forth all night long. We're not gonna get anywhere with it. Lawrence, thank you, but we're gonna move ahead with what we got.
If I could, can I
Lawrence?
ask, would y'all just, I'm just trying to close the deal here a little bit. Would you consider adopting a resolution to set a public hearing and authorize advertising? So we can
Resolution right here, I'm getting ready to read, okay? All right.
It's not statutorily correct. You have to advertise and have a TIF plan on file to have a real public hearing and meet the requirements of TIF statute. So this
Lawrence, thank you for being here, but we're gonna move ahead. Thank you. All right. Folks, listen up. I got a resolution here I'm gonna read. I'm gonna read the entire resolution. It's not very long, so bear with me. It's the resolution of the Board of Supervisors of Jackson County, Mississippi, declining to hold a hearing regarding the tax increment financing plan for Legacy Park. Whereas on March 3rd, 2025, the Board of Supervisors heard a presentation regarding the tax increment financing plan for a Highway 57 Medical Arts Facility, Hotel, and Recreational Development, otherwise known as Legacy Park or the project. to be developed by ATM TIF LLC. And whereas the Board of Supervisors find this project would not be in the public interest, nor would it be in the best interest of the public health, safety, morals, and welfare of the county. And whereas the Board of Supervisors declines to hold a public hearing or otherwise approve the tax increment financing plan for Legacy Park. Be it resolved, therefore, that the Board of Supervisors of Jackson County hereby declines to hold a hearing regarding the tax increment financing plan for a Highway 57 Medical Arts Facility, Hotel, and Retail Development. And I'm going to make that motion. If I could get a second.
I'll second.
I have a motion by myself, a second by Mr. Taylor. All those in favor say aye. And opposed, no. All right. Resolution has been adopted. I want to thank all of y'all. Thank you for coming tonight. Everybody be careful going home, please.
You going to
And we have
recess?
one more order of business to take care of. Y'all want to make an order to recess real quick? I'll make a motion to recess until March 17th at 9 a.m.
Doing great. How about that?
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We are recessed.
But you heard.
Last was about 2 weeks ago. And
Somehow get somebody smarter than
I
me
can't see
and
it.
tell them what to say. And start, you gotta knock on doors and you got, who needs this? I will guarantee you, if you can get someone to talk at their doorstep for a couple of minutes, you're gonna get their vote.
Yeah, we're done. Thank you, sir.
I do know this, I do know that when you have a direct or indirect interest in a contract, you
Yeah,
cannot
there will
accuse
be a
yourself
primary.
and
Yeah, okay. You and him are running against each other in the primary. Yeah, okay.
Excuse me, I'm looking down. You doing all right?
you proved it on May 17th.